moment right now for a silent prayer or reflection. Okay, thank you. Gary, would you call the roll?
Nicole Cohen.
Here.
Anna Elliott.
Here.
John Manston.
Here.
Lisa Ramon.
Here.
Jackie Fox.
Here. Let's stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to review and accept the agenda for this session?
So moved.
Second.
Lisa Ramon.
Yes.
Nicole Cohen.
Yes.
John Manston.
Yes.
Anna Elliott.
Yes.
Jackie Fox.
Yes. This is a silence.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and for the information of the audience as well. This is a work session to discuss our Family Life Education Policy, IHAMB. That was brought back to the board in July based on changes that were recommended by the Arizona School Boards Association. The Arizona School Boards Association recommended those changes because the legislature had made changes in the Arizona revised statute, and because the state school board, State Board of Education, had made some changes in the Arizona Administrative Code, which have now been retracted. And so we did bring a revised policy to the board, and it was the board's interest in making some perhaps additional or different revisions to our policy. So the suggestion was that the board have a work session so that the board would have an opportunity to discuss all facets of our policy, reasons for making changes that are being suggested, and also have an opportunity to hear, if you choose, comments from the public regarding our policy.
Before we begin, first of all, we're going to have two speakers, and then you will have an opportunity to speak, and I will explain how that will work. Would any board members like to make any comments right now at this time?
I just want to say thank you for everybody coming. I haven't seen this many people in this room in 4 years, so I really appreciate seeing all the new faces and looking forward to having a real open, honest discussion about what's laying before us. So thank you very much.
Mrs. Cloud, would you like to introduce, I guess, Mojave?
We do have from the Mojave County Public Health Department, Sarah Hancock, who is going to be presenting today, and Sarah Lynn. I don't know if you're both going to be presenting or not. And if you would like to introduce who else is here, would you bring that forward?
Sure. So also from the health department, we have the public health director, Denise Burley. We also have the assistant director, Melissa. And then we also have our direct supervisor and the nursing supervisor, Lynn.
So, would you take the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry guys, I know it's a large room. So again, my name is Sarah Hancock. I'm from the Mojave County Department of Public Health. And today we brought with us my colleague, Sarah Lynn, one of the awesome duos of Sarah's, also with the Mojave County Department of Public Health and Pregnancy Prevention Program. And then also from our offices, we brought the department. So we brought the department manager, Denise. We also have the assistant department manager, Melissa. And then we also have the nursing supervisor, Lynn, with us here today. And are we okay to head into our presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so today we have a presentation for you guys about a little bit of the facts and statistics about the problem that we're facing in Mojave County in regards to teen pregnancy as well as sexually transmitted diseases. And then we have a little bit about what our program does, how we were started, and kind of how we do things with our program. Okay, there we go. All right, so just some statistical information for us to get started. Nationally, the issue of teen pregnancy is still a major health concern, and Mojave County is no exception. Okay, so the national rate, we're sitting at 22.3 births per 1,000 females. This is in the age range of 11 to 19, and these are the 2018 statistics. So Arizona sitting at a little bit higher than the national rate at 28.5 births per 1,000 females in this age group. Mojave County even higher still than Arizona, sitting at an average of 29.8 births per 1,000 females. And then that's an average of all the towns within Mojave County, so some will be higher, some will be lower. Bullhead City is sitting at 36.9 births per 1,000 females. Kingman is at 34.3, and then Lake Havasu is at 22.4 births, so right about the national average for teen pregnancy rates. All right, so a recent survey, a 2017 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance Survey, was done, self-reported information by high school students. They found that self-reported 40% of high school students had ever had sex. By 9th grade, when they're entering high school, 10% of them already self-reported that they had had 4 or more sexual partners. By the time they're seniors and they graduate, this number jumps to 24% that have had 4 or more sexual partners. And then 30% have self-reported that they had had sex in the last 3 months. Of that 30%, 46% did not use a condom, so they were not protected from sexually transmitted diseases. 14% used no birth control method of any kind, including the withdrawal method. So also targeted by the program is sexually transmitted disease rates, which are incredibly high, not only in the county and in the state, but nationwide. So STD rates have climbed dramatically in the teen population nationwide, including Arizona. Even though adolescents represent only a fraction, 25% of the sexually active population, they account for 50% of newly acquired STD cases. So adolescent women or teenage girls have the highest rates of gonorrhea compared with any other age group. So they're being affected by this disease specifically in a huge, huge way. And then adolescents account for 20% of new HIV cases, and as many as 1 in 7 who are living with HIV have no idea. So we have some of this information in a graph here that everyone hopefully can see. So in last year, the United States reported 20 million new sexually transmitted disease infections. Now keep in mind, those are people that are getting tested that find out they have the disease. This does not account for people that are living with the disease and don't know it. So total STDs among men and women in the United States right now affect 110 million. Again, that number could be higher. Some people who are living with the disease and don't know it wouldn't be included in that statistic. And then again, the 50% of people are within our targeted age group are affected by these STDs. So you have the new infections, so that 20 million number on top, and then the estimated existing STDs or infections on the bottom there. So those are the chronic ones that people are living with. You can see just a couple pulled from the slide here. HPV, or human papillomavirus, or genital warts, affected 14 million people, adolescents, last year alone. Now, as you can see, HIV is still firmly on the board. HIV currently in this population, about 900,000 people are living with HIV in the United States. Again, those are people that know it. So a little bit about our program and what we do to try and combat this growing public health concern. So who we are, our program, Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program, is designed to improve the health outcomes of adolescents through 3 main goals, 3 main things that we're trying to achieve. First one being we're trying to reduce the numbers of teenage pregnancies among this population, so 15 to 19-year-olds. We're trying to reduce the number of repeat pregnancies, and also, importantly, we're trying to reduce the incidence of those sexually transmitted diseases among those 15 to 19-year-olds. So how we do that is we implement school-appropriate, scientifically accurate, age-appropriate, and evidence-based curriculum to meet those 3 goals. We started in 2008, and we've been rolling out the program throughout the county since that time. We've had more people come on board as the years progressed, but that's when we started. It was back in 2008. Currently, Sarah and myself provide the program throughout the county, so we are in Lake Havasu City, we go to Bullhead City, we go to Kingman, Fort Mojave, Topop, Littlefield, basically anywhere that feels that this is a problem that they would like to address. And then why we do this from the previous slides, the scope of the problem is very large. This is a problem that lives firmly within our backyard, and we're doing our best to combat this through the best tools that we have. So can these programs help? Why do it if it's not going to be helpful, right? So WISE guys, I guess I should clarify, the program is designed to be taught to the genders separately. So females and males are separated for the entire length of the curriculum, and each one of them has their own designed specific curriculum. The boys would get the WISE Guys program, whereas the girls would get the Smart Girls program. So WISE Guys is a proven male-oriented teen pregnancy prevention program that teaches many different topics. We go over 8 chapters. Some of these topics include consent, contraception, sexually transmitted diseases, values, and anatomy. In the back of the room, on that table, we have the consent forms that parents do sign in order for their children to participate in this program. On the back of that paper, if anyone has it with them, is the breakdown of all of the chapters and all of the topics that we talk about for both. So moving on to Smart Girls. Smart Girls is designed for girls to learn and rehearse positive behaviors that promote healthy decision making. It covers topics that range from self-esteem to values, to standing up to peer pressure, to how to assert yourself positively, anatomy, contraception, and sexually transmitted diseases. Both of these programs are considered abstinence plus programs. So what that means is abstinence is promoted as the only 100% effective way of preventing a pregnancy or a sexually transmitted disease. So that is A+, best choice. We say that if and when teenagers decide to become sexually active, hopefully later on in their lives, we are providing them with the knowledge necessary to know how to protect themselves. Okay? And then both programs stress parental involvement and communication. Both programs have built into the curriculum ways for the teenagers to be able to bring what we talk about home and discuss it with parents so that parents can chime in with their family values, their religious and cultural values, or whatever the case may be. So it's very much a collaborative effort between parents, us as facilitators, and the teenagers. And then does it work? Okay, so participants in these programs, when the programs were studied for efficacy, they showed an improved knowledge of consequences of sexual activity, so meaning you can get pregnant from having unprotected sex, you can get a sexually transmitted disease from unprotected sexual activity, consequences of that nature. Increased communication with their parents about sexuality. Once they had lessons in class, they would bring those topics home and discuss them and get parental input. They delayed sexual activity, so the teens that were not sexually active before they started the program did not show any likelihood of having sex at an earlier age or before they would have once they took the program. And also a rise in contraception use among teens that were already sexually active when they took the program. So if a teen was already sexually active, once they take the program, they self-report being more likely to use contraception, such as a condom or another method. And also they self-report they are increasingly likely to abstain from sexual activity once they know the risks involved. Okay, so in closing, teen pregnancy and teen STD infections are significant issues that impact the health and the well-being of youth throughout the county. Every single county is affected by this. The Mojave County Department of Public Health has a program that has been proven to help. The Mojave County Department of Public Health's Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program would greatly appreciate the continuing opportunity to work within all of our communities to improve the health and the lives of youth and their health outcomes. Okay, and then we have some contact information for myself as well as my colleague, Sarah Lynn. Thank you. Sure. Do we have time for questions or concerns?
Okay, go ahead. I just want to, let me clarify that I want to make sure the audience realizes that this program is used only at our high school, not at any other level in our system. Go ahead. Yes.
So I'd like to know the scientific, I would like to know where the scientific evidence-based information,
Sure.
because there's no sources for that and I have contradictory information.
Right, so when these programs are put forth to be approved by the Arizona Department of Health Services, they are tested for efficacy. They are required to submit documentation and submit tests that prove that these are effective based on evidence and basically that they're guaranteed to work. If they cannot prove sufficient documentation to Arizona Department of Health Services, then the program is not adopted. Periodically, also, the programs are reevaluated by the state to make sure that they continue to do what they set out to do and actually improve some of these issues for the teens that are affected.
Except we have an overwhelming STD problem in the state of Arizona
We definitely
after
do.
20 years of doing this program. So that's why it just doesn't seem logical, the information. So I just would like to see what they consider evidence-based, if you would like to send that to me.
Of course, and the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, the World Health Organization, and several other organizations do recommend that maybe not necessarily use a specific curriculum by name, but that curriculums like these presented to teenagers to provide them with education about how to protect themselves from an STD later on in life have proven to be effective at reducing the rates in sexually transmitted diseases. You're welcome. Other questions?
I have basically three.
Of course.
Are you required to do this during school hours?
So the way that we do the program, the answer is yes and no. We do have a separate program called TALK, or the Teen Outreach Program, which can be conducted outside of school as kind of like an extracurricular activity. But historically, the way that we've always done the program is within statutes and curriculum that the high school already adopts. So in like PE or science or health, generally our kind of goals align to the point where it can be instructed in a classroom and during school time. So that's historically what we've always done, is during the school year, during class day, in a health class, PE class, science class, something like that.
Now, and if I understand this correctly, there is a list of curriculum approved by the state of Arizona,
Yes, sir.
and you chose these particular pieces of curriculum out of that list?
So we have several that we're trained to facilitate. These two are the most popular for our teenage population. So we have an abstinence-only curriculum that we can provide to younger students that are like in middle school. We don't teach anyone that's under the age of 11, so generally our reached group is anywhere from 11 to 19. But the Wise Guys and the Smart Girls is the most popular of our curriculums for our high school youth.
I actually had a chance yesterday to thumb through the binders, and in looking through them, I noticed that you don't teach the entire curriculum. Why are you not teaching the entire state-approved curriculum?
Correct. So Wise Guys, for example, the way that it was designed is to have several activities, so many options within one chapter under one kind of subject line, and then the facilitator chooses from those activities. So what we do is we've chosen the activities from each chapter that A, our youth seem to like best, B, seem to fit in with our community and the participants' needs, and so on and so forth, and we choose that activity. There's not enough time in the day to do all the activities, so we choose the ones that we, as well as our participants and administrators, can fit.
Can you qualify that for me a bit more? Because you say activities, and I noticed there were entire chapters left out.
So the Wise Guys curriculum is designed to be 10 chapters long. We do all 10 chapters, but in an 8-day period, so we do combine some chapters. The Smart Girls is designed to be 9 chapters long, but we provide it in 8 days. So we reached out to the people that make the Smart Girls curriculum and asked them if it would harm the efficacy or if there would be any damaging effects to cutting the last day, which is like a mom and me, or like an out and about activity that you do with the teenage girl in order to help boost self-esteem and spend time with an adult and things like that. We cut that chapter because it's hard to do in the time that we have, as well as it's hard to facilitate something like that and get a group of students. Sometimes our classes are 40 students large, sometimes we teach as many as 500 students in a school. Getting all of those girls to go do some extracurricular activity could be a challenge.
And then my last question is this funded directly by the county, or is this federal grant money?
So we are funded through the Arizona Department of Health Services. So not funded by the county. We have a grant. We reapply for the grant every so many years, and that's how we receive all of our funds to do what we do.
It's a Title V grant for 5 years, correct?
It's funded through lottery funds.
Yes, it's lottery funds. Great, another organization that gets money except for K-12.
Any other questions or concerns that I can help anyone answer?
I just wanted to make a comment, and I appreciate the information that you gave, and I hope that you'll make that available so we can post it on our website. But my concern is, I didn't know that this was the type of presentation, so I didn't know that you were going to be like selling the program. I thought it was going to be more focused on the numbers. And so I'm just a little surprised at that because this all came about so quickly. So this is a very awkward, like I'm trying to not go into areas that I don't really want to go into today, but it kind of puts me up against the wall. So I hope you can understand that. I was really hoping that we were just going to have numbers because I guess I just need to say it. The health department really needs to get board permission from every single school district on a regular basis, not just from the high school administrators. And I also would like to know how many people opt into this program every year because we have no numbers on that. We should. Because we should know. The numbers don't make a whole lot of sense that we're spending this kind of time, this kind of money, not our money, district money, but still it's taxpayer money, grant money is still, whether it's fed, state, local, it's our money. And if I'm looking at 10 pregnant teenagers between the range of 10 and 17 in 2007, and we've gone down to 3, and I did look at the curriculum last night, which is the first opportunity I had. So I also wonder what we do for parents, because it says in the consent form, if you want to look at it, you can take a look, but that wasn't so easy to do. So it just seems like it would be nice to have an off conversation instead of highlighting that this is successful, because I'm just going to say right now, it's not. And I can't prove it in the moment because I didn't have this information before, but it's important for us to compare apples to apples when we're talking about this. And it's not an abstinence program. This is not an abstinence. When you're teaching kids how to put condoms on anything, that's not abstinence. So.
Okay, thank you for voicing your concerns.
And I appreciate you coming.
Of course.
Okay, we have spoken. Did you want
I'd
to
like
say
to ask
something?
one question. The program was implemented in 2008. Have you noticed any difference in the trends as far as teen pregnancy is concerned? Have the numbers held relatively steady? Have they declined or increased?
So in the paperwork that the board members, I believe, have is a breakdown comparison of county to county throughout Arizona, teen pregnancy rates from 2007 all the way down to 2017. Now, it is a reduction. It's a significant reduction from in 2007 when it started. Can all of that be laid at the door of the teen pregnancy prevention program? It would be impossible to say. Do we think that it's having a positive impact? We can prove that empirically with data, but
I'd love to see that.
So that data can be made available, and we would be happy to share it. We have a program that we believe in, and we hope that over time you guys can see the benefits as well.
Go ahead.
Just one follow-up question to that. In 2008, what was the teen pregnancy rate per 1,000 in DeKalb Sioux City?
So I don't have that information with me, but I'd be happy to look it up.
9.5?
Per 1,000?
10 to 17-year-olds. It's not per 1,000. This is just local.
So on your chart there, you have it broken up into a little bit more specific age groups. So you have 10 to 17, I think you have maybe 15 to 19 as well. They do track that information through the Bureau of Statistics, so we could absolutely provide that information if they have a specific for you.
I think that might speak more to efficacy of program and societal change and so on, because I think there's a lot more than a program when you start tracking pregnancy rates in teenagers across time.
Yeah.
Except we constantly have heard for the last 4 years that we're a transient community, district, county. People are moving constantly, so how do you can't, you're not tracking the information on whether the program helped. This could have been somebody that came in from California that was pregnant, and you listed them as pregnant, and then boom, they were off to Tucson or off to Siberia for all you. I'm just saying, these numbers, while I know that the data is being collected, does not necessarily prove that the program is its efficacy. And then there's also a few studies in Dr. Jean Twinge's book that talk about how pregnancy is down overall across the country, because kids aren't even going on dates anymore because they're sexting in their phones. So it's down across the board. So
yes, it is down nationally. Again, it's hard to pinpoint one exact reason for that. Programs like this have been rolled out, so it's possible that programs like these have had a change. Many things could have been part of that change.
Okay, I saw some hands, and what I'm going to ask you to do, if right now, if you have a question, go ahead and ask your question. But if you want to have a conversation or make a point, hold that until the time, which is going to be soon, and then you can make those points. But do you have a question? And Stephanie, you want to start with your question?
Stephanie Loeris. You mentioned that material is provided for the students to go home and facilitate conversations with their parents. Now, parents are provided the opt-in form and the breakdown of the chapters in the material. What resources are parents provided to have discussions and educate their children further, other than their own basic knowledge? You're sending kids home saying, hey, let's have this conversation, assuming kids are gonna go home and have this conversation. How are you empowering parents to continue this conversation?
So that's a good point. I think that parents are definitely an integral part of this conversation for teaching their kids about sex and abstinence and family values and all of those things. Through our program, we try to remain values neutral. So it's not about us telling the children what we think, what we feel, any of those things. We do have a values chapter that is about them exploring their own personal family values, cultural values, religious values. As for your question of what resources are available for parents, we do provide the consent form, like you had mentioned, that has the breakdown of topics so parents can know exactly what's happening on which day, so they can be like, oh, okay, what did you learn about self-esteem today? And then have that conversation with their child. We also have parenting classes that we do that are available to anyone who wants to take them for how to have difficult conversations with your teens about a variety of topics, including sex.
And I see another hand back there. Go ahead, sir.
I take it you're kind of
I need your name.
My name is Steve Bucklew. I'm a resident here for 25 years.
Steve Bucklew.
I take it you're heading up the group?
I just work here. I just do the short stuff to the top.
Well, can you tell me exactly what you think roughly one of the problems that we're facing? What's the problem?
For teen pregnancy or for sexually transmitted
You listed a
diseases?
bunch of things. What is the problem?
So I think that we could agree that any teen pregnancy, even if it's one pregnant teen that didn't want to be pregnant, that would be a problem, right? As well as the negative health outcomes of getting an STD.
Do you understand the difference between defining the problem and the symptom? We can treat symptoms all day long. You will never solve the problem. In the problem-solving process, you can read any book in problem solving. The first step is to properly identify the problem. And what I'm seeing mostly is all these statistics. Yes, those are, if you go to a doctor and he says, what's the problem? I say, I have abdomen. He could give me a pill that might take the pain, but it's not going to solve the problem. All these other things might be fine to do, but until you know exactly what the problem is, and I have a better idea, I think, than what's been presented, you'll never solve the problem.
All we can do is our
Any
best.
book will tell you that.
Okay, so Mr. Bucklew, your question is,
Define the problem.
Define the problem. What is the problem? Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
I'm John Navarrete, and in your course, do you have natural family planning in there? Are you familiar with natural family planning?
As a form of birth control?
No, it's not control. Natural family planning is a means of avoiding pregnancy without artificial contraception. Is that part of your program?
We do not. We do not go over tracking your ovulation or things of that nature.
I think it should be, okay, part of the program, not the whole thing on how to do it, but if you're doing sex education, people should be aware of that as a possibility, because it's a way of avoiding pregnancies without using artificial contraception. So I think if it's an objective course, it should include that. And also in your course, is there anything that people are aware of that certain birth control items can unintentionally contribute to abortions? Because they do, and that should be in the course if it's not.
So we do talk about some of the efficacy rates of the different birth controls, stressing that.
So that's not efficacy, that's fact.
Right.
So I totally agree that you shouldn't be opinionated in any way, shape, or form. That should go back to the parents and the churches to talk to their kids. That it should be factual. But I'm saying if you're claiming to teach an objective
Right.
educational course.
That's
The
it.
natural family planning is an excellent way of avoiding artificial contraceptions, and there are birth control measures that do produce possibility of producing abortions.
Yes.
So
So-
people should be aware of that.
Yes, sir. So
That
definitely
should be in there.
a good point on the natural family planning. We do talk about the dangers of birth control per method. So, for example, the dangers of having an IUD move out of
Right.
place and cause an infection or something like
But is
that.
there specifically a danger that it could cause an abortion? Because a lot of people don't know that.
No, sir.
Okay, there should be. If it's going to be objective, that should be there.
So state mandates suggest that we do not bring up the topic of abortion.
Then why bring up the whole topic of sex education?
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
all right, all right.
I do have to clarify there about that, because that's not true. You're not allowed to promote abortion, but it doesn't mean that you can't talk about the,
So-
danger, you can't answer questions about dangers
So-
of it.
Abortion is not part of any of the lessons, so
Right.
it's never a topic that we're going to bring up. So if we were talking about birth control, we're not going to open that door. If a student opens it for us, we can give them factual, non-values-based, just factual information.
And
that's what I was trying to
it was said that we're doing this in high school. Is it this program or is it a different program?
This is this program, yes.
In high school, but it is available through the whole,
County.
through K-12? Okay.
Not this program, no, this is just
Oh,
at
so
high
we're
school
talking just
level.
high school.
This is
Okay,
totally
thank you.
different from anything we might do.
And could it, as a suggestion, if it goes out and people do approve for their students, I would think automatically the parents should get a copy of the curriculum so they can go home with it, and the churches should get copies of the curriculums. Because then if the kids want to approach parents, or the parents want to approach their kids, and the churches, they can have an understanding of what's being taught, and they can piggyback from that. It's hard to piggyback off something if you don't have the information.
Absolutely.
So it's a suggestion, that should be automatic. If
Sure.
you do it, it should go to the parents and the churches.
Yeah. And we're going to make sure that we have a copy of all of our curriculums in the superintendent offices, all of the ones throughout the county. So just like you said, any concerned individual will have the opportunity before the program starts to look it over.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yes.
I would like to clarify that this has been taught in the past, that our policy requires and state law requires board approval specifically of the curriculum. And so it will not be taught in the future until the board makes a determination. First of all, will we offer sex education with positive parent permission? And if we do, then what will that program be? And there's a process that's defined in law for us to follow in order to approve the curriculum.
Right. Thank you very much, and I'm assuming you're going to wait throughout, or are you able to stay for a while? Or?
We can stay for a while.
Okay, I just don't, we don't know the course that this conversation will take. To answer questions would be great. And I just want to clarify too that under state law that we are under no compunction to even offer any kind of sex ed or reproductive health of any kind whatsoever in any grade. So that's always an alternative. But we have done this program for about 20 years with very little parent. I mean, hardly. I mean, I'm not aware of any parent discontent, and most of the parents do allow their children to take the large majority. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Howard, would you like to introduce Mrs. Howard?
Thank you. Our second presenter is Mrs. Marcia Cox, and as a community member, as well as our EBT board president. She's also chair to make the chair. Thank you.
I'm not sure which way I'm supposed to click this, so let's go with this. So my topic today is evidence that school-based comprehensive sex ed isn't working. So basic overview, how did we get here? Talking about the programs in Arizona, commenting on puberty is not a disease, CDC stats, STDs, HIV. And you gotta go back in history, you gotta understand where it came from, and it started with a man named Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey was known as the father of sex education. Kinsey started the Kinsey Institute of Research in Sex, Gender, and Reproductive Surgery, and one of his infamous quotes was, "The only unnatural sex act is one that you cannot perform." Kinsey thought that children were sexual from the moment of birth. He published a book called The Sexual Behavior of the Human Male in 1948, and the Kinsey Institute is still in place at part of the University of Indianapolis, and it's still doing sex research, not necessarily on children, but that was part of what happened in the 40s, and that's where a lot of the information that came from CICUS and Planned Parenthood and UNESCO, it started back in that time. This is one of the tables. This is table 34, and it was out of chapter 5. Chapter 5 was one of the lesser publicized books or parts of the book, and part of the reason for that was because this chapter was specifically on children. Kinsey had to prove that children were sexual from the moment of birth, and of course the only way that you can do that is to make sure that children can have orgasms. So Kinsey had to do research on children. And the only way that you can have a child have an orgasm is to manipulate them, and he used pedophiles to do that. And all of this research is still at the Kinsey Institute, and as you can see from this research, the youngest child that was performed, that was forced to have an orgasm, was 5 months old, and the child had 3 orgasms. And the one that I want to point out to you is the 4-year-old that was forced to have 26 orgasms in a period of 24 hours. Now, if you have a grandchild or you have a child that is 4 years old, and you can remember a child being 4 years old, forcing them to have 26 orgasms in 24 hours, you can still understand why I get upset for this. And some of the quotes in red are their legs becoming rigid, muscles and abdomens contracted, breath holding, grasping, eyes staring and only tightly closed, are quotes that these pedophiles wrote in their research papers so that Dr. Kinsey, who was an entomologist that studied bugs before he was the father of sex, these were the notes that were put in the research papers, and they're also included in the book that you can buy on Amazon for $9.95. The other person that was part of the sex ed curriculum and is instrumental in getting this into our schools is Kevin Jennings, who was one of the original founders for GLSEN, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education. Jennings was instrumental in doing what was called reframing the issue, which basically was instrumental in, first in Massachusetts, in making sure that he was able to make sure that the safety issue of protecting homosexual children in school by saying that homophobic thoughts were dangerous to children and that there was more violence against children that were homosexual. And he didn't get any pushback. No one stood up, no one pushed back, and now we know that GLSEN is in almost every state in the state of the United States, and they are have an onslaught, an assault on getting into every single school. Jennings was also part of the Department of Education for the Obama administration until the year 2000, when he started having what were called FISCATE conferences. And I'm not going to read any of the information on the right-hand side. You can look at that yourself. But children as young as 12 years old were given homosexual acts by state employees in Boston, and they were carted to these conferences on school buses, and obviously using federal funds to do that. And he was forced out of his Department of Education, and you can obviously see the reason why. So are the sex ed programs working in the state of Arizona? These are federally funded programs. This is one example. I was not able to find any of the information on Wise Guys and Smart Girls. They are not listed on the state of Arizona Department of Ed grant programs. I was able to find some information that I can provide from Health and Human Services on your particular programs, but these are ones that are Title V. This one targets age 10 to 14, and it failed. There is a harmful element score that is done for CSE programs. This one failed 15 out of 15. It sexualizes children, teaches consent to sex, and promotes anal and oral sex. This is another one that targets 12 to 18. talks about how to manual, it's a how-to manual for sexual activities. Again, it fails 15 out of 15. It teaches children how to perform sex acts on each other and to condone obtaining consent. We know that these programs are being used in schools and school districts. Osborne uses a program called Flash. Cave Creek uses one of these programs. We know that they're in the school districts. Tucson is also looking at their program, and it's very similar to these. This is a program that's probably one of the most explicit that I've seen, and it's promoted by GLSEN, Planned Parenthood, and UNESCO. It's called Rights, Respects, and Responsibilities. This is a program that's targeting age 5 to 18, and it is truly a K-12 program. It teaches youth about sexual pleasures, masturbation, anal and oral sex, and it promotes transgender ideology. It is a true sexual program that has been promoted in the schools because they're offering all of the curricula to the teachers and training the teachers and giving all of the information and guidelines for all the curricula for the students for free to the schools. 2 years ago, the American College of Pediatricians did an abstract research study in their results, and you can look at the link on the bottom, and I can provide any of this information to you as well. But the study conclusions were that human sexuality is an objective biological binary trait. It is not a generic marker of a disorder. Puberty is not a disease, and puberty-blocking hormones can be dangerous. According to the DSM, as many as 98% of boys and 88% of girls, as soon as they go through puberty, they begin to accept their natural gender. And so giving a child a puberty blocker in a prepubescent age is going to prevent them from going through puberty. That's just the bottom line. So we know that if you give someone puberty blockers before they go through puberty, they are not going to be able to go through their natural process of puberty. So what do we know about the programs? We know that comprehensive education programs are at an 85% failure rate. We know the Institute of Research and Evaluation conducted these programs. They looked at teen pregnancy, Center for Disease Control Meta-analysis, and the United Nations programs. And what they were looking at were outcomes, sustained effect, and main intended population. The results were that there was no evidence on 60 programs that they were effective at producing sustained reduction in teen pregnancy and STDs. They looked at no evidence of effectiveness on dual benefits. They looked at 88% failure rate to delay teen sexual activity and 94% failure to reduce unprotected sex. 7 out of the 60 actually provided significant negative effects, and the 7 programs were abstinence education programs, sustained delays in teen sexual activities. Their conclusions, not mine, were that claims that CSE has been proven effective and AE is ineffective were not supported by the combined database containing some of the strongest and most current outcomes studies of U.S. sex education. The CSE has shown that these programs do not work, and their recommendation, not mine, was to abandon plans for implementation of CSE in schools and pursue alternative strategies to reduce teen pregnancies and STDs. Thank you. So how is it harming? We looked at some of the statistics before, but bottom line, we have 18,000 people AIDS and HIV in Arizona. We have 2 cases in 2013 that are under 13 years old. The one most significant number was 71% of all men having sex with men in Arizona was the highest rate. But here's the fact that I was the most astonished about was we are currently in a statewide outbreak of syphilis. We have 269% increase in syphilis from 2015. I'm apologizing for the slide looking like this, but STDs among those aged 10 to 24 is the highest age group in Arizona. It's 41% of gonorrhea. And the bottom line with the STDs and in Arizona is that we have a 67% increase in gonorrhea and 76% in syphilis and 45% in chlamydia. The CDC has said that we expect gonorrhea to wear down our last highly effective antibiotic. We are sliding backwards. We do not have a good answer on this, and we have been teaching this for 20 years. We cannot allow these types of programs. We have got to find another alternative, and the programs may be promoting a lifestyle that is not acceptable to our parents and our students. We can come up with a different answer. Thank you. And thank you, Madam President and the board and Superintendent Asari for allowing me to present this.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox. I have a question. Either you or possibly the health department can answer. Are you aware of any controlled studies where a population of students is not given provided with any instruction at all? Randomly, the parents have the talk, or we happen to know that a lot of parents don't, and they don't want to have that talk. Would that population be compared? Would that be worse, better than a program that is presented? Do you have any idea how that is? Have there been any studies about that?
Well, there has on abstinence programs, true abstinence programs.
Do you know what the outcome of that has been?
Well, I don't have the numbers offhand, but I mean, I do have it on the handout that I made, and it is sourced where you can go look at it.
Okay.
The WeAscend.org is a site that's very well.
Say that again.
WeAscend, WEASCEND.org is a research study group that has been studying abstinence only and then the risk reduction programs. And they've sourced a lot of the research on those and looking at abstinence only programs. And they have about 10 that they've researched. I think I probably picked 3. But those programs in particular for me, I like those because they require the parents to be involved and they require the parents to be participating in the training. They also have peer-to-peer study groups. But more importantly, they're abstinence only, but they're also parent involvement. And for me, that was very important. But you have to remember, President Cox, that part of the problem part of the reason why there isn't a lot of information on those programs is because these CSE programs have been so significantly, heavily funded by the government for so long. We know now, though, however, that starting in 2016 or 17, but more importantly last year, the funding for those programs has started to reduce, and more of the abstinence-only programs, they actually started increasing the funding for those by, I think last year it was upwards of $110 million. So we're seeing some increase in the funding on those programs. So I do expect that those are going to be seen more readily available, and nurses like the two Sarahs, I think that, I'm not a clinician, but I work with clinicians all over the country, and I work with pediatricians and gynecologists and all kinds of different physicians, and you present the material, you present what you present what you're trained to present, and if you're trained to present an abstinence-only program, that's what you train, that's what you present. And these AA programs they're working, so.
Okay, all right. Do you have a question?
On the conclusion slide, you refer to 3 authoritative sources. Can you tell me what those 3 authoritative sources are?
Teen pregnancy prevention, let's see if I can get back to it. I don't know how to get back to that. Teen pregnancy, it's probably, no, it's up a little bit further. Teen pregnancy, United Nations, and Center for, I can't remember the third one. CDC. Yeah, CDC, United Nations, and Teen Pregnancy Prevention. This, I gave Terry Fleming this presentation, so she's got that, so she'll give that to you. And all of the citations are there as well.
Okay. So at this point, this is how the evening will proceed. You will get to speak. You'll have to go to the mic. You will give your name. Now what we're going to do when someone, having been through these work sessions before, what happens is people are in the audience and they're thinking about their own thoughts and then sometimes not realizing the person up there is making the same point that they are planning on making. So what we're going to do, this is Mrs. Asayer's suggestion, which I happen to like. Someone gets up to speak, you may either stand up or raise your hand that you agree. Just at that point. It doesn't mean that you can't speak later, just at that point. That will give us an idea of what your thoughts are. And if you are standing up and the person at the podium says something you disagree with, then you can sit down or put your hand down, and that again will give us a feel for what is going on. So we would like to know what you think. What should we have a program at all? If we do, what should we include? So basically, who would like to go first? Yes. Okay. Give us your name.
My name is Mike Quijada, and my daughter goes here, and to the high school now. And I think what I've heard about your program, I love it, and I think that we should continue it. But I also agree with one of the moms back there that we should have a full copy of the entire curriculum. It sounds like you're doing both. You are putting in abstinence as the forefront, but realizing that that's probably just, it's like winning the lottery to me. I would rather have some safeguards and let the kids know, because I was a kid too. And I think what you're doing is good. Thank you.
Very well said.
Go ahead with the blue right there. Did you want to speak? Did you want to speak what? In the blue on top? Okay, then you get to go next.
My name is Cindy Quijada. I've been here 24 years. That is my husband. And I do have one more child in high school, so I fully agree with this. What the other lady was talking about, those were very extreme programs that I don't think we do in our school here, correct?
No, we don't.
So why we're talking about those, it does not affect our school. What affects my kids here is what we are doing here. What goes on in the rest of the counties is really not my problem. I don't live there. It's not something I care about. I care about what my child is being taught. So I am in full agreement with that. I also agree that it should be written out for the parents too. I guarantee you, half the parents in this town work, don't have time to spend with their children giving them another lesson. If it is in paper and they can look at it and go over something they might question their child about, or their child might feel a little more comfortable if they know their parent knows what they've learned, correct? I would think everybody would agree with that. Our kids, we would love all our kids to be abstinent. Every parent in here, I guarantee you, would love if your child waited till they got married. Come on, let's be real. That is not going to happen for a lot of these parents in here. Am I right? I'm telling the truth. You can be a God-fearing person. You can have religion. You can be anything you want to be the best parent in the world. But there's a lot of stressors out there for kids. So I agree with you. I think it's awesome. Keep doing a great job.
Thank you.
I'm not really prepared. I just kind of walked in and ended up here, so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and speak then. Since the microphone's very close here.
What is your name?
I'm David Bybee, the pastor at Community Presbyterian Church, and also the president of Lebanon Bridge Christian Churches. And I really am apprehensive about programs, government programs, that come in and teach about sex education. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. I think it really needs to be looked at very carefully. I was friends with Tom Gillespie, who was the president of Princeton Seminary, and he said our culture has drifted so far that sex right now is anything you want to do as long as it doesn't do any kind of bodily harm. And we've gone really way too far out, and I'm quite concerned. I notice the churches here in town, we've signed a covenant that sex is to be within the bounds. Doesn't mean we don't fail, but it's within the bounds of marriage between a man and a woman, and we want to hold to that, encourage that. I did talk to a teacher, talk to others, and they said they don't want to teach programs. They don't mind the biology that we're men and we're women, but beyond that, they don't want to teach any kind of education about sexual behavior. And I remember growing up that my pastor, they held sex education in the church, and they had the pastor, a physician, and then the parents, if they wanted to come, came and could ask questions, and I think it was a very good context. I just think it's a slippery slope. And we have to be careful because of all the kinds of definitions of what sexual behavior is and the context that it's, I believe, supposed to be in. And so I would be very apprehensive.
Thank you. Nicole, I think we have
I think the discussion is so important that even the people that are here that agree with where I'm coming from, I feel it's too important for this to be a cheerleading situation. So I want to point something out. This has nothing to do with the program you run, but we have a suicide problem. Every single teacher that's in here is watching the culture go down. I had a middle school student, or I was told about a middle school student yesterday. They came home and asked her mom and dad what's wrong with her because she's not bisexual. We have an issue in our culture, and it is stemming in part because of this conversation, not because of the program you're teaching. But I will tell you, anybody who thinks that we're not teaching this in our school district, we will be if we continue with a CSE program, because the CSE program is changing. And this is 10 years old. And they have not added all the gender identities and all the ideologies that are being pushed through sex ed, which there's a big problem with this in our society.
They're making it socially acceptable.
And I'm not,
Sir, you can get up in just a second. Thank you.
and I am not homophobic. I want to nurture anybody who is having a difficult time during this period. But I want to make sure that before everybody is clapping for, hey, this is a great program, it would be really nice if you would at least try to understand, and I have tried to succinctly put it on the page that I created. But this is a bigger topic than what's going on locally, because it is changing, because it is a government program. They're paid by a government grant. They're going to teach what the government says, and this is a really big problem. And it's not just an Arizona problem. This is a worldwide problem. This comprehensive sexuality education is being pushed through every little country in the world. And the United Nations is threatening countries that don't want to sexualize their children with defunding them. So this is a bigger problem in Lake Havasu or Arizona. So I just wanted to make that clear, because this is not about what our teachers or our county is teaching. It's way bigger than that. And that's the conversation that would be good to, I just wanted to make that before people kept coming up, because I know kids will come home and say, this is great. You know, I learned this, 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 and this. But it's bigger than that, and that is not okay for every family. And the fact that the school board didn't know about it is kind of a bigger problem. So, anyways, I'll shut up now until the end. Look forward to hearing from everybody. But I really do hope that you'll at least read the page. And for those who don't want to do 100 to 1,000 hours of research, I've made it real easy on the backside, entertainment style. So I hope that people will engage one way or another and actually look at the information that's out there and how it's affecting the LGBT community, the Christians, the atheists. It's affecting every religious population. It's a big problem. And to just throw our hands up and say, well, kids are going to do it. I did it. I mean, I had my daughter when I was 19. I did it. But we're in the 21st century. Kids don't have to be trained how to protect themselves. They know, wrap it up, they know that. This is everywhere. So the idea that we have to teach it now seems, I don't know, a little contradictory to the times. But anyways, sorry.
As a counterpoint, I would argue that the STD rates make the point that kids do not know this, that this is not inherent knowledge that they have, that they need to be taught it.
Except they have been for 20 years, and STD rates are through the roof. So the programs have failed.
And another measure is the pregnancy rate, which are on decline. In any case, this is actually the public's time.
Yes, it is.
Sir, would you please go up, and you were going to make a comment?
No, they just make the...
I have to have your name, I'm sorry.
Matthew Mansell.
Matthew Mansell.
My problem is, the society has made, transgenders, gay, lesbian, they've made it socially acceptable. And, they make it sound like, if you're not, then you're frowned upon, or you're picked on, or you're bullied. You know, what you do behind closed doors is your business, but you know what? Stop shoving it in my face. You know, the government shouldn't be teaching my kids about sex. If you don't have time to teach your kids about sex, maybe you should have thought about that before you had that child.
James Barber. I told my sons, I have 2 sons and they're very good looking guys. I told them, and they're friends, all the football players. The one thing I told them was, every day, don't come home with any extra people. Now, and they understood what that meant. I have one son who is so selfish, he probably won't have kids. The other one has 2, but all their friends, when they talk to me, they say, haven't brought home any extra people. They know. And I'm going to tell you now, I went to school in South Central Los Angeles, and the 2 most important weeks of my school years, all 13 of them, was the 2 weeks on sex ed. First week was about girls, second week was about boys. I asked my teacher, how long does a sperm live? And he told me. And then the first week I asked, how long does an egg live and when does it come out? And the next week I asked, how long does a sperm live? You know what? I started doing some calculations. I figured out when I could and could not have sex to keep from getting someone pregnant. And when we have people talking about, what is it? Oh, we have to believe in climate change, we have to believe in the science, but now we gotta suspend science for transgender because I have yet to see, I'm waiting for the day, to see someone change their gender, their chromosomes. I'm waiting for that day because I'm just here. I like science, and science is very important. I'm waiting for it to happen. As soon as it happens, then I'll start worrying about somebody's sexuality. If you're born with XX, you're a female, and you're born with XY, you're a male. There's nothing different.
My name is Corey Porter. I have 2 high schoolers, a junior and a senior, both who have been through this program. I would say that I do personally like the program, but I think we need to do something earlier if you really want those rates to go down, because by freshman in high school, some of those kids are already having sex. Another thing, I have talked to my kids about sex since probably 6th grade, 5th grade. This has just reiterated what I have taught them, but I think what I like most about this program is that you teach them self-worth, and that no is no. Again, something that I have taught my kids, but it's just good to have somebody else teach them the same thing that I've been teaching them. And I know I don't want my kids to have sex either, but if they have one partner through high school versus 5 or 6, I'm going to be a lot happier about that than, so I do feel like it is making a difference, and I just think there needs to be something a little bit earlier. And as far as parents being involved, I know teachers could say this, but there's not a whole lot of parent involvement in schools, so I don't know that having a program where parents are with the kids would be something that would actually benefit our community, because I don't think that's realistic to think that our community, our parents, would be able to be there. Thank you.
So I'm a parent of a soon-to-be, Adam Cochran.
Adam
Cochran.
Adam Cochran.
Like Johnny.
Yeah, all right.
For those of you who remember this. And I have a brother named Johnny too, so so I've got a kid who's going to be turning 11 this year, so I'm not where you guys are at quite yet, but it's coming up soon. And, you know, and even now, it's important, you know, we can't, the world has changed, society's changed, And we can't deny that. The reality is, I think it's the most important that parents be able to have as many tools available to them as they possibly can, and that they have a choice in how they're involved with that, along with discussing with their child. I love the idea of this program. There's areas in it that raise red flags for me personally. The values, I would like to look closely at what values are being taught, and I would like flexibility in the program to where I can see all the curriculum ahead of time. I can say, you know what, I like the program, but I don't want my kid to sit through values because I don't agree with that, and I want to have that tool to be able to, say, give them the program, Tuesday, have them go shoot hoops or something. But I want to be as involved in that as a parent, and yes, he's going to get additional supplemental discussions at home too, but I understand that by that age and already now he's listening to me less and less as he becomes more independent, and receiving that from another source is good. On the same side, I think it's important that the churches are involved and that it's an all fronts. I really think what we need to be looking for is an all the above approach to education with parental involvement and the child's involvement. And I think that's the most important thing is the child and the parent have that communication. Can we guarantee that's going to happen in every home? I guarantee it's not. There's lots of not good ideal home situations out there, but having the tools available to them and any opportunity to learn and understand and realize the consequences for or against things, so that they're making educated choices, they're being able to become what they are as teenagers, is slowly becoming mature, responsible adults, to be able to live a good life and be the people that we as parents would be proud to see them be.
My name is Francisco Santana. I'm the coordinator of youth ministry at Our Lady of the Lake, Lake Havasu City. And I've lived here for the last 5 years, and I've had the opportunity to work with both junior high and high school students while I've been here. And I used to live in California, where for the last 15 years I've worked with young people in high school in some form of youth ministry in one way or another. So I've had a lot of opportunities to work with young people. And I just wanted to kind of echo what was said here from the last gentleman, but I also want to bring up a couple of points. First, I want to say that when we talk about safe sex, when we talk about condom usage as a safe measure to prevent STDs, that is providing people with a false notion of security. Condoms were created for what purpose? To prevent what? Pregnancy. They were not designed to stop or prevent STDs. So when we promote the idea that condoms will help prevent STDs, that is going to cause more STDs, because you're providing people with a false sense of security because they're going to go out and have more sex. Now, I appreciate what was said in the presentation, with getting the parents involved, and that's the second part that I want to really make a point on. Parents must take time. It's a necessity. It's not even an option. If you have a child, if your child isn't your priority, there's a problem, okay? If you don't have the time to talk to your child about what they're learning in class, especially in terms of sex education, there's a serious problem, because that hits at the very core of who and what we are as people. Dr. Jordan Peterson says, don't allow your children to do anything that makes you not like them. If you don't want your children to have sex before marriage, as it was said earlier, that abstinence is the goal. Abstinence before marriage is the goal. And I waited, okay? I waited. It is possible. I've been married now for 9 years, and I'm proud to say, I'm pleased to say, I'm blessed to say that I waited. It's possible. The standard and expectation was set for me in my home, and my parents made sure that they provided us the home values that we needed and the community that we needed to make sure that that happened. So the standard and expectations must be set. Parents need to know what is happening in their schools. They need to be educated, and I appreciate the fact that this program does, in fact, give parents some of the information. but I want to say the parents are the primary educators of their children. Parents teach their children first. So if you want your children to be abstinent until marriage, as was said earlier is the goal, we need to set that standard in our homes, and we need to know what's going on in our schools, and to say, oh, I got the packet, that's good enough. No, it's not. You need to talk to your children, and I want to encourage all the parents who are here and say good on you, and good on all you teachers who are doing your best. I appreciate you all. God love you. Thank you.
Anyone else? I see some students in this room over here. Do we have any students who would like to give their input?
I got a comment.
Oh, sure.
My name is Nicholas Williams, and I just like to point this out because it's like we still go on dates. We still go out. It's not an instant, hey, how you doing? You want to be my girlfriend? Doesn't work like that. I still go on dates. I'm not oh, I've known you for 3 days, let's go do something. I like dates, like, first time dating. I like to get to know them before anything goes down. I like to meet their parents before anything. I respect them, That's all I like to say.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Love. I'm a teacher and a parent. My kids are all 10th grade and older. I don't like public speaking when I'm not in the classroom, so give me a minute. But I just wanted to clarify real quick because I went through the email, looked at all the links, and from what I understood, what you shared with us in the beginning, I walked in a couple minutes late, but that's what we've already been teaching at our high school, right? Yes. Okay. And then you're saying, Nicole, right? That what you're concerned about is. So I'm all, I consented for my kids to go. I agree with sex education. Of course, I, did my best to teach them what I thought they should know. But talked to my kids and found out what was going on and what was taught, and I felt like I was fine with it, plus I know most of the teachers. But, so you're saying that if we continue, that what we are teaching is the SCE already?
It's a TPP program.
Okay, so the,
and I have it broken down, explaining that. So
Okay.
TPP and CSE are kind of in the same category as risk reduction programs.
Okay. And what you're proposing or what you would like to see is just the SRA, the avoidance completely?
Yes, I would like to see the avoidance completely because it addresses more than just sex. But there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not because I live in a fantasy land.
Yeah.
That's not it at all. See, I feel like I'm battling people who are defending the current program, and that's I don't mean you, but I mean in general. What I'm saying is that there are things that are coming down the pike. I mean, we just witnessed it at a state level. There is a big goal that is pushing an agenda, and anybody who doesn't want to have this conversation in the context that it actually is kind of missing the point that I'm trying to help share.
Yeah, and that's why I came here, because that's what I wanted to know, is like, what am I not aware of? What am I missing?
It's coming.
And what is coming that we're not aware of? Because so far from what I've heard, it's fine, but I know what they teach in California. My friends that lived out there were outraged at a lot of the things they were teaching.
Yes.
I went through their, and looked at the stuff that their kids had been instructed on in the classroom at school, and asked my kids if any of that had been taught here, and they're like, no, not at all.
Not at all.
So, like I said, mine are all 10th graders and older, so this doesn't really even affect me, but I have a lot of friends that have younger kids, so and maybe grandkids someday, a long ways down the road. But, so your concern is that what we are currently teaching is gonna be, if we say, okay, this is okay, let's continue this program, that it's gonna be forced on us, or they're gonna decide what to teach, and we're not gonna have any say over it. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, we're always, until the law changes again, we're always going to have a say locally over what we do. But the purpose for the handout that I gave was I wanted to be really clear that there's two different types of programs. I wanted to be really clear about the science. I've received a lot of emails, and I have to say it's concerning when I receive an email from a teacher who says homosexuality is not a choice, it is biology. That's where I feel like our world has been turned upside down, because that's a teacher. And science is science. And I hear people from academia talk about, well, we gotta follow the science, follow the science. This is science.
Yeah.
So we're kind of throwing science out because for this ideology and this agenda that is being pushed, and it's very radical. And that's really my concern.
Okay.
But I know that I get anyways, that's my concern, yeah.
And I agree with the, like, you know, teaching our kids to protect themselves, make good choices. I like the idea of self-esteem. I do think that curriculum like that shouldn't be taught by teachers. We're not supposed to teach them about our religion or our beliefs, so why would we teach them something like that? And then as far as what you said earlier about having the curriculum accessible for parents, it kind of sounded like what you were saying is that all we could see was like what they were teaching that day, like self-esteem, and not really like the handouts that were in that email that they sent. I don't know if all y'all guys looked at that, but it was very disturbing. And I would want to know if my kids were seeing handouts like that. I would want like that to be included in, so not having parents, I wouldn't go to school with my kids and be like, hey, I want to learn about this, but I would want that all of the material, I would want to have that available if that kind of stuff was being taught in my kids' class. So I think that's all I want to cover. Thank you.
For clarification, on your proposal, I was under the impression.
Excuse me, just a minute, let her.
Somebody else.
Have her come back. I can't remember the name.
No, it's not Mrs. Love. I just want to, I do think it's important. In your proposal, are you saying, it sounds to me like you're saying that we should eliminate sex education. Is that not your point?
I am open for discussion, which was the reason that I put forth. I know it doesn't seem like I'm open for discussion, but I really am. Call me anytime. I put the proposal out there so we had something to talk about. But everybody was offended by my proposal that we couldn't even talk about it. Otherwise, I would have, explained my proposal. I'm open to talk about it, but I think the parents need to be involved. Somebody mentioned it needs to be younger. Absolutely. I'm thinking kindergarten registration. I think this conversation should be had. I'm not even joking because of what's coming down the pipe. With parents. Oh, yes. Not with parents. No.
Me too.
Parents. Because these programs, these CSE programs are K-12 programs. Yeah. And that's why I think it's important for us to have this discussion. But I feel like I'm always kind of trying to get my point out, and I never truly do. So I really don't want to lose the audience before I explain my handout. So I'm wondering if I could just explain the backside of my handout before I may lose anybody who's going to just go, this is stupid, and throw it away. That's fine.
How many more people wish to speak? Raise your hand. Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got more, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let's go ahead.
Thank you. Lake County Board of Education representative. My name is Diane Klostermeyer, and I'm here speaking for myself and my husband, Arlen Klostermeyer. We've seen the materials that Mrs. Cox had, as well as some of the books that our children may be exposed to. I've also gone online based on the information provided by the school district and reviewed a lot of the information that you have read as your background. And I would like to say, based on the information and things I have read, as parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents in Lake Havasu City, my husband and I strongly oppose this proposed program. Now, it may not be smart boys and smart girls. I didn't have access to that, and it wasn't on your list of reading materials. I'm sorry, and I don't know what's in that supposed new agenda. However, what I've seen, The educational proposal seriously violates parental rights and values, including families' religious rights and biblical teaching. It provides a very dangerous and erroneous teaching about a child's sexual identity and behavior. It serves to incorporate proclivity for abnormal, perverted sexual activities, engenders not only deviant sexual education, but teaches the student that this is normal. That's what that one book was called. This is normal. Look at the book, parents. The book and the program not only encourages abnormal, promiscuous behavior, practices, and attitudes, but it encourages such actions and activities with fellow students in mixed gender classes and provides safe zones in some areas for such noxious experimentation. This training can lead to an abnormal attitude toward the students' sexual identity and their sexual orientation. We believe, my husband and I, that this is not a healthy educational program. Like board members Nicole Cohen and John Masden have said, quotes, "The school shall not provide any sex education or include in any course of study instruction that promotes, condones, or encourages students to engage in any sexual activity or pursue any specific sexual lifestyle." As a retired RN, I believe students need to know about their normal anatomy and physiology in separate gender classes, so as to understand their normal development while promoting respect for their privacy and a policy that encourages modesty. Wow, modesty, where do we ever hear that word anymore? And also normal sexual behavior. We believe that students should be taught a program that engenders moral standards and attitudes of our community and of their family, including a respect for themselves, encouraging the proper respect for human life, not being taught things like Planned Parenthood. All right? They should seek to treasure true love and sex and marriage between a man and a woman and God's blessings of a loving family. They should be warned about dangers of premature sex, of course, as well, both emotionally as well as the associated diseases. But it's best to do a lot of this in the home, is it not? Students should be encouraged to talk to their parents about sex education and the family's moral standards, including vital answers to their questions. Not a teacher who may have different ideas, different values. I'm not saying anything's wrong with our teachers. We have excellent teachers in our school district, but don't put this on their shoulders to teach our values, our home values, to our kids. In our opinion, this program, if approved, is an outrageous violation of parental rights and an affront to the child's normal, human, moral, and sexual development. We therefore, my husband and I, strongly protest providing this deleterious so-called sex education program in our school, and we respectfully request that you vote no on having it in our district. Respectfully, yours, Diane Klostermeyer. By the way, I have a copy of this. Yes, ma'am.
Please. So this material that you saw, the only thing that we teach in 5th grade is puberty and hygiene. That's how a 5th grader, 4th grader, 6th grader, but our children are entering puberty in 4th grade, unfortunately. But it's a 5th grade program, and I just want to clarify, all of our programs are taught to boys or another program to girls. So I'm confused about where you got this information that you think that we are trying to put into our curriculum, because
you're talking about a new program where it's going to expand what they're being taught now.
That's not what we're doing.
No.
Go ahead,
Diane. So the board didn't know we did sex ed in the high school until less than a week ago. So the confusion is coming in that Marcia and I had already gone down to the State Board of Ed, along with Diane Douglas, to talk about what's coming. So this all unfolded in the last week. So now we're conflating what's coming with what we did. And that's exactly what I don't want to happen. But this is important. I really would like to, can I just have 2 minutes to explain?
Go ahead.
What's coming, I don't want to be coming.
Right.
I want parents to be the primary teachers.
We're not voting on anything
about
on
what we're
Tuesday,
doing.
Diane.
Those are not the facts.
We're not voting on what we're doing Tuesday. We're not voting on the programs, the CSE programs that you saw. We're not voting on any of that Tuesday. We're not even voting on a program on Tuesday. We're voting on a policy. But what you say is all valid. It's just, I don't know how else to say, there's a misdirect. I mean, can the high school appreciate the fact that nobody on the board knew that we had a sex ed program?
Because that's what was said in the meeting.
Because we were assured, and I went over. I'm sorry?
Why didn't you guys know?
I'm sorry?
I didn't know.
It is not for lack
Point
of
of order,
effort.
this has turned into a free-for-all. We need to bring the conversation back. Nicole, I think board member Cohen ought to be given 2 minutes to present her materials, and we can go from there.
Can I make one distinction for the Cajadas? The board asked what the comprehensive sexual education program was and if it was taught in the school. The superintendent investigated and came back with an answer that we did not, based on her investigation. That was not correct information. The Mojave County Health Department has come in for the past 20 years, 10 years, and taught the comprehensive sex education program in the high school. We cannot either find in the minutes of the board where the board approved the curriculum taught in the school as is required by state law. There are problems that have happened procedurally within the district in regards to this that we will now work to correct. We will cease our program until they're corrected. That's where we're at internally with this. What we're developing is we're developing a policy this evening through your input on how we will move forward with comprehensive sexual education in our district, if at all, in conjunction with what state law allows us to do. That's what we're actually here to do. Your input on all of this, though, is very important to us as a board. We want that input. And so what has happened, though, is with the timing, we have things that are conflated.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's a lot of confusion in what board member Cohen has done in her research versus what we currently do in our program in the school.
Wait just a minute. Hold on just a minute. We're going to let Mrs. Cohen go. Hold your question, please.
So I just kind of want to go through the backside that I put together all the videos, just so people understand. So the upper left-hand corner where it says the agenda with Steve Payton, October 27, 2016, U2. That's a conversation with Dr. Jordan Peterson, a university professor at University of Toronto. I don't know if you heard about this in Canada, Bill C-16, where they were going to compel speech. They were going to compel you by the full weight of the law to refer to the LGBT community by their preferred pronoun. And if you didn't, you would be hauled before the Human Rights Tribunal. So that's what that video is. And he makes some predictions about what will happen if this passes. It has since passed. The middle one is Prager University, which I highly recommend to everybody on all the hot topics because they're 5-minute videos. They're not partisan, they are very educational. So that video is, it's important to the conversation. And it does kind of address what we're gonna go through with Title IX coming up here. The next one, Representative Spano on HR 5, the Equality Act, floor debate from May 17th. That's our United States version of what just happened in Canada, okay? We're about to go through this. Now it passed the House, but it's not gonna pass the Senate for now. But this is a big problem. Then the next one down is a long interview actually, but these are people on what this room, because everybody is so politically divided, would be on the left. And she's explaining how hurtful this Equality Act is going to be to women. Because if a man can decide to be a woman and then compete against women in sports or jobs or whatever it is, well, then there is no real women's rights or equality, and it's very educational. The one in the middle, Blair White and Dave Rubin, is really interesting because Dave Rubin is a gay man and Blair White is a trans woman. And it's the most thoughtful discussion you've ever heard on everything that we deal with on a daily basis. I can't talk about these things because I'm called a racist, a homophobe, yada, 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 yada. But so it's very refreshing to hear a gay man and a trans woman have this conversation. I thought it was appropriate. I put a list of the Republicans that voted for this Equality Act because they should be called out, because it's wrong. Go down to the Blair White heated debate with Jessica Yaniv. I'm sure the younger kids have maybe heard of this. I don't know. I'm not on Facebook. But I did pull this off YouTube because, again, this Blair White, this trans woman, debates this Jessica Yaniv, who is a Canadian, who after that C-16 passed, uses the full weight of the law to shut down all female businesses, to go into estheticians and demand that these women handle her private parts. And she doesn't want to, so she files a human rights violation against them. That's where we're headed. So it's kind of a preview of where we're headed with this PC culture. And then the no opt-out allowed in California is about the most horrifying thing I've ever seen, because this video is a pastor from Temecula-Murrieta area who has the school board come into his congregation to talk about what they're doing in sex ed. And the school board lies to him. And they start digging like I do, dig, 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 dig. Well, they show in this 30-minute video Riverside County Board of Education, where the ACLU and Planned Parenthood are training administrators on how to lie to parents about whether or not their children are in school, because the children with no age restriction have a right to go have an abortion while they're manipulating the system to get paid for the butts in the seat. And this is being trained to administrators in the Unified School District. It's coming. Just because it's not here yet doesn't mean we shouldn't have a conversation about what's coming, because it's coming. So I just wanted to explain that because it's really important. Our First Amendment is under threat. Everybody's afraid to talk. Everybody's afraid of being labeled. And if we would just treat everybody respectfully based on them, not their group that they identify with, we wouldn't be in this situation. And we've got to recognize that. We've got to course correct or we're screwed. So that's my explanation of this page. And it's just, so if you don't want to do all the hours of reading, I've got that too.
So you had a moment to explain the facts.
Yes.
And now let's move on with the public commentary. Mrs. Klosmeyer,
Thank you.
I have a question for this one. I just wanted to make a point. I just want to make sure that you understand that whether, if we do decide to offer, that's called sex education, that it's not what you saw.
It's not even being sent home to the parents. They were not even aware of what was being taught. This is not good for our district. It is not good for the child. It is not good for communication between the child and the parents. And they should be the primary educators. They should be notified of things, and they're not. And what they're going to have in the future is even going to be worse. Look what Nicole is talking about. After it's implemented, it's too late to take it out. The kids have already been indoctrinated and
Just a minute, you'll get a chance to speak. Thank you.
That's my question, that's the way I feel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I'm just here to try to run through
Oh, well, that's the basis of the research.
Well, that's what, I just wanted to come up here. My only question is what that whole disturbing presentation was about.
I don't really get the point of why we had to know all these facts about Kinsey and all that. Maybe I'm totally missed a big part of it, but I just don't understand that whole
I agree with,
What
I
is-
agree with
what
you
is your
because that-
name?
That presentation has nothing to
Melissa
do with
Jones.
what we're proposing for the high school.
Melissa Jones? Oh, thank you.
I
Yeah, I
disagree, it
just-
has everything to do with that.
Not.
It's how we got sex ed.
We are not proposing implementing any of these research strategies within the high school. We are talking about, in the future, possibly having some parameters to choose a curriculum. Nothing to do with Lindsay's research.
Okay, I totally get that those are very poignant, but I just feel like they were a complete disturbance to what the whole matter of the meeting was. I just stood there in shock and disgust and any way, shape, or form, because all my family lives in California and I know what's coming, I know what they're fighting against, so I get that, but I feel like that was completely inappropriate and not necessary for today.
I just wanted to share
Now that's ingrained in my mind and I want to vomit.
Thank you.
It is.
All right, who is next? John Navarrete.
Yeah, so has it changed? I lost my notes. Wait a second. Okay, I'm 70 years old and I've been dealing with sexuality for about 62 years now. And I'm still looking. But at any rate, I had 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters that I had to raise. And cultures have changed. I've seen a lot of change in cultures. I've seen a lot of change in norms. I've seen a lot of changes over the 70 years. Some good, some bad. It's always changing. But education is power. When the culture's changing and things change, people have to be aware of what the changes are. The parents have to be aware of it, and the kids have to be aware of it. I had to deal with my 2 daughters when they were in junior high with kids going to the bathrooms and having oral sex. And my kids are now 37. So this was happening when they were in junior high. They meet in the bathroom, not my kids, but kids meet in the bathroom to have oral sex. So I would never have expected that as a father back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, that that's what's happening. But that's reality and that's what's happening. People have to be educated. It's power. And we have to deal with what's now. Yesterday, we can't change. We just learn from it. Tomorrow, worry about tomorrow when tomorrow gets here. All this stuff that might be coming up, when it comes up, you deal with it when it comes up. You can't deal with it now. So let's deal with what we're trying to deal with now, in the present, and worry about the future when it gets here. Okay. I want kids educated. And if the basis is abstinence to begin with, it's good education. If the basis is parent involvement, it's good education. It's the ideal, but I haven't seen that ideal 100% since I've been in grade school. There's some parents who get involved and some parents who don't. There's some parents that ideally teach their kids values. There's some who don't, and that's never going to change. So to say it's the parents' fault and it's the parents' responsibility is great, because it is. But we're not going to change every parent out there. So we have to rely on the educational system. But the parents should be notified. They got to sign something before they can let their kid get on a bus and go out of town. So whatever program we have, it should be sent out to the parents. What it is in each class should be sent out to the parents, so the parents know what's happening. And if they think it's okay, then that's their decision. It should go out to the churches, so the churches can reinforce what's being taught or teach it from their religious tradition. Because amongst the Christian churches, you'll get 10 of them together and you'll have 10 disagreements, okay? Nobody agrees on anything, especially in today's culture when everybody has an opinion. But the bottom line is, there has to be an education, and I think the kids need to get education from the first day they come to school on sexuality, because it is too late when you wait to high school. Like I said, in 1998, there were kids having oral sex in the bathroom in junior high, which in 1980, my brain wouldn't have even comprehended that. So I'm just saying, I think we have a need for the education. The parents should understand what's coming down. If it's abstinence-based, it's great. If it's parental guidance and church-based, it's great. And that's about it.
Thank you. Someone else is lined up.
Dr. Megan Weiss, I'm an OBGYN in town. I know many of the children in here, I know many of the parents. There were several things when I was reading through this agenda that I want people to be aware of. I love everybody here, okay? But there are quite a few things in here that are inflammatory and inaccurate. Where is it here? I'm trying to pull it up. The gender dysphoria video link is from the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing political group.
Thank you.
Where's the other one? I wanted to mention the American College of Pediatricians is not really a legitimate group. The American Academy of Pediatrics is who produces all of the standard of care documentation in the country. The American College is a right-wing political group of pediatricians. And so I just wanted to make sure people were aware of this, because I know this as a doctor. I do research. I read journals. I know how to look at what are the resources. One of these was the CSC Harmful Elements Analysis Tool. Oh, darn it, we don't have it yet. But all of these are from a political agenda, and I appreciate the internet beyond belief. It has helped a lot with getting information to people. But sometimes you go down a rabbit hole with some of that information, and I was kind of disappointed. I didn't feel like I had enough time to give you better data, but if you want that, I can try to prepare that. But I really feel like a lot of this data is very biased. And it is very difficult now. We have a very political environment. People are constantly bickering, right, left, right, left. The goal is to take care of children and provide them.
That's the goal?
The goal is to take care of children, to help them develop healthy lifestyles and knowledge. And one point, I am definitely a big, please don't have sex before you're married kind of person. I will admit that. I am a realist, and I take care of those 14-year-olds that are pregnant. And they could have had information sooner that may have prevented that. One of the biggest things that's incredibly important now is our teen delivery rates are actually the lowest they've been in years. They peaked in the 90s, and they're much, much lower now. So I believe we have had some success. Now, I will tell you, I think some of that is because of the internet, and people are not in contact with each other anymore. I think they're, doing everything online, so they're not physically together. So that's a little bit of an issue. We also have more available birth control now. So more people are on birth control. Our birth rates through the country for all groups is actually down, except if you're 40 to 45. Anyhow, those are some things I wanted to point out, because you keep talking about science. I want to make sure you have the right science.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Because I want to clarify.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that you think it's right wing. But I have a question. So as a doctor who wants to do what's best for kids, do you support chemical castration or puberty blockers for an let me finish my question, please. For an 8-year-old who insists that they are of a certain gender?
I think that's a very political question. And I am a physician. I take care of my patients in my office. Now, I am not involved in that kind of medical treatment, but I think if you look at in other countries where they, like in Britain, it's part of the NHS, they have multiple, you don't just go to like me and get that prescription. You have to do psychiatric counseling, you have to do medical, it is a really long road to do that. And so I don't think it's just an instant yes or no answer to that question. No,
I mean, it is.
No, this is medical care. Medical care is individualized with your doctor.
Let me ask you this then, I'm sorry. Let me put it a different way. Do you support a 16-year-old going against her parents' wishes to have a double mastectomy after being on puberty blockers because she doesn't want to wait any longer. Do you
I
think
will
that's
support,
okay?
I will support any patient that comes to my office for care, because I take care of everybody.
Okay, well.
Race, gender, well, I don't do every gender, I only do women, but I will not treat anyone. So I think it's a very political question you're asking me.
I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
But if you haven't watched the video of the right-wing doctors from the College of Pediatrics, I don't know how you can all say that with all due respect.
Well, no,
because these are
definitely-
physicians that treat patients in that area, and this is a problem.
It's from the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing political group. The other, one of them was also from Liberty University, a research organization. Liberty University is Jerry Falwell's college.
It's values,
It is-
it's not political. It's one set of values and another
Values
set of
are politics now, so, we kind of have gotten away from science. I support anybody who needs to see me as a patient. I don't do that, but I will care for any person who comes in my door, because as a physician, I take care of the people that need me. So I don't get involved in politics. I just wanted to correct some what I perceived as misinformation.
If you don't get involved in politics, then how are you so sure that the Heritage Foundation is a right-wing?
Because you can Google it.
Okay. Well, to Google something does not mean that you know
How did
something.
you arrive at all of these articles?
I'm sorry?
How did you arrive at all of these articles? Where did you obtain them?
Google.
Google!
No, actually, it wasn't Google. It was going down the reason, maybe to find videos,
Okay, everyone, so anyhow, I just wanted
I
to
just don't
correct
think that's fair.
what I
You're a
perceived
doctor.
as, exactly, which means I've kind of many years of education, I know how to read research.
But you won't answer my question because it's not
And
your.
you're not asking me a political
I'm not
question.
dating. This is a problem in our society.
We are not here to solve society's problems. We're here to figure out what we're going to do for these children so that they have some knowledge and power and can make good decisions.
Wow.
That's what I feel about it.
That's exactly what.
Can I just ask Dr. Reese a question?
Yeah. But you have me say your name.
That's fine. I'm Sienna Snedeker.
Do you want me to use this?
I don't care.
Come to the mic because we need to hear you.
So you're with the birth control being more available to teens, is that, you think, a reason why this STIs are going up in numbers?
No, I think we have a problem in the whole
thing, right.
It's not only the teens that they're increased in. Our syphilis rates have really skyrocketed in this county.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's not all young people.
Okay, I just wanted to get on that because I want to make an educated decision as a parent.
Well,
Okay.
it's easy to look at one thing. This is a multifactorial problem.
Okay.
And is it a cultural problem? Yes. I believe in monogamy. I think that's a good thing.
I do too. I just,
Yeah,
but,
so I
we've got
think,
kids and teens and.
Yeah, so I believe, people need to be educated about how to not only be healthy for themselves, but how to prevent the spread of disease. So, yes, the best is that parents do everything, but unfortunately, I will tell you, in my office, I see a lot of teenagers that do not have parents that are involved. And so where are they gonna get the very basic, just simple stuff that we as, well, not me, but you as educators can guide them, at least in some small way, to enable them to have power, to enable them to have confidence and feel like they can choose for themselves what will not hurt them in the long run. And so, that's kind of how I look at this thing.
But if you're arresting their development before they.
I'm not talking about gender blocking now. I'm talking about basic human anatomy, understanding what a period is, understanding what a penis is, what is a vagina. These are words that people need to use as their medical terms.
But you delegitimized what I put forth, 3 accomplished MDs that specialize in this area that did a panel discussion that talked extensively about the problem, and you completely delegitimized it as a right-wing website without even looking at it and listening to the doctors. It's hard for me to understand how we fix the problem if that's how we're going to address it, because I would never walk in to anybody that I know on the left and say, well, this is a stupid left wing, because that's what I'm trying to.
Well, here, you did not have a balanced side of this.
Okay.
All of the data that you gave was one agenda. There was no counteract, there was no, there was one article from, what, 83 or not, no, 93.
Okay, I didn't provide that one.
Okay, but everything else was had a very strong agenda to it. And I just wanted to educate people and make sure they realized that the biggest thing was the American College of Pediatricians is not who certifies pediatricians. It is not who sets the standard of care. And so when you give people names that are very close to the legitimate organization, it makes people think they have more weight. And so I just wanted to emphasize that is not, people may think that is the American Academy of Pediatricians, which sets forth the standard of care for pediatric health care.
And the Academy is the one that uses Kinsey in their citation.
The American Academy of Pediatrics is the largest group of pediatricians in the country.
I understand.
And I did not have that research because, again, it was not provided. So I would like to look at it.
I'd love to send it to you.
Yeah, but that'd be fine.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weiss.
Oh, can I make one more comment?
Go ahead.
I would ask that in the future, if you have stuff where parents are supposed to be involved, please have it be after work hours. Because I'm seeing patients at 4 o'clock, so I missed the first half of the presentation. So if you really want parental input, you need to have it after work hours, because most of us do work after.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello?
Yes, what's your name?
I am not a Dr. Alexa Weiss. After that, I feel the need to preface this by saying that I cannot possibly hope to address every single thing I would like to, or else we'd be here until 9. And that I cannot put this nearly as eloquently as my wonderful mother has.
Are you a student?
Yes.
At the high school?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Which is part of the reason why I'm up here, because so far we've had a very diverse range of input, everything from educators to community members to church leaders to parents, but we have been lacking, with the exception of I believe one person, we've been lacking a student perspective. So as someone who went through the sex ed program 3 years ago when I was a freshman, I'm a senior now, I've found it a pretty positive experience. It was very pro-abstinence. I wasn't honestly expecting, I was told that it was pro-abstinence, and I wasn't fully expecting just how pro-abstinence it was. It managed to surprise me. And even though I have a couple of qualms with the program that are irrelevant to this discussion, I did find that whenever someone asked a question, like, what's the failure rate of this? How well does this work? Can you do this and this at the same time in order to minimize pregnancy, STDs, etc.? The first answer that we got was always abstinence works 100%. So I do not agree that the existing program or the program that has existed up to this point is not an abstinence program, because that was always the first answer, even when it was kind of got in the way of the actual answer to the question. It was very, very, very pro-abstinence. And the statistics were very well emphasized that abstinence works 100%. Not even your best IUD is going to work nearly that often. Another reason I'm up here is that, in case you hadn't noticed the shirt, I am the president of Pride Alliance, which is a club at the high school dedicated to preserving a positive environment for students of all sexualities, gay and straight, I don't care, and genders. Again, I don't care. And as the president of that club, I feel the obligation to point out the fact that a large number of the comments that have been said up here can only be described as blatantly hateful and disrespectful and cannot go unchallenged. I represent the very real, at times very unpleasant experiences of dozens of students
we have a fairly large, surprisingly large body of LGBT plus students at the high school that unfortunately couldn't be here because of time and all that. And there's no other way to put it. It's not acceptable. We can't be treated this way. Again, just some of the inflammatory statements about how, you know, can't be made socially acceptable for someone to live their own life. Again, I can't be saying anything that most everyone in this room hasn't already heard. If you spend 2 minutes on the internet, you'll get bombarded with rhetoric. But there's my obligation as president and as a representative for that community. I'm taking a stand. It's not okay to treat us like this. Thank you. I left it back in my seat.
Okay, well, I hope that you and all your members of your club will listen to Dave Rubin.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with him or.
No.
Okay, well, I would hope that you would take a look.
At times, some of our meetings will involve discussions, right, especially on video things. I'm running the club a little differently than it's been run in the last few previous years, so we may end up discussing, what did you say the name was, Dave Rubin? How do you spell it?
Well, it's on the back.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All the videos are on the back, but yeah. I'm just curious. I don't know anybody who has any hate for any member of the LGBT community. I know that it sometimes sounds that way because we're to the point where we can't talk about it. Otherwise, it sounds that way. But it's truly not. And I know members of the community that feel the same way I do, so.
I think our policies should shed some light on why these feelings might have developed. We contain right now specific language that targets homosexuals and makes them feel unwelcome. We say that our policy will specifically promote honor and respect for monogamous heterosexual marriage. We say that nothing shall be included in the course of study of instruction that promote the homosexual lifestyle, portrays homosexuality as a positive alternative lifestyle, or suggests that some methods of sex are safe methods of homosexual sex. Our code should not exist to promote one sexuality over another or create a favored class.
That was a state statute, not a board policy.
And I approve repealing those
So did I.
policies.
So did I, Lisa.
You wanted to get rid of the entire thing. That was a Gordian knot approach, not.
What?
In your proposal, and I understand that there might be some misunderstanding, but you said that you wanted to eliminate all sex instruction. That is what your proposal says.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as a replacement of all of that other language. That's not solving the problem, that's just ignoring it.
It's not ignoring it. Clearly, I've done enough research. I don't want to ignore the problem. I want to discuss the problem. I want solutions. I want teachers involved, parents involved. I wanted a discussion. But it's hard to have a discussion when you're constantly, you're providing right-wing information. This is slanted. You're saying hateful things. Not that you were saying that to me. Maybe you were, but maybe you were saying it about other comments.
What hateful things did I say?
No.
I'm sorry, it scared me.
You didn't say hateful things, that you had heard hateful things here. I haven't heard it that way. I haven't heard hateful things. I've heard frustration, and I don't know if you were here, but when you have young girls who are thinking there's something wrong with them because they aren't attracted to both sexes.
Oh, we don't.
As a parent, that would be concerning.
Yes, I would be very concerned about that because this club is about saying, you're straight, that's fine. You're gay, that's fine. You're bi, that's fine.
We're trying to have a conversation about what's coming and what will be taught in the schools, not what is being taught in the schools. And I applaud that there were certain things removed from the statute, but they could have made one simple fix in our state statute. They could have removed heterosexual and made everybody happy. They could have promoted monogamous marriage. But instead, they repealed it. So what are we going to promote? Crazy free sex? I mean, that's where I had my problem, but we never got there. Because we can't have a conversation.
Okay.
That's the problem.
I want to just clarify, Mrs. Desire reminded me a little while ago, this is a board meeting, and when a board member wants to speak, I mean, we're here to listen to you, that's why we're here. But this is, he did it. disagreement. And so when a board member wants to speak, I have to call on a board member and let them speak. Okay then, did you want to ask her a question?
No, I want to talk.
Well, I think we've got, you can go ahead and go get in line.
Come on up.
Okay, next. Who's next? All right, there you go.
My name is Katie Stengel, and I'm a counselor at the high school. And I'm also the advisor for Pride Alliance. And in about a week and a half, I'm going to have 40 plus students sitting in front of me asking questions, because this has been widely talked about. And they, like Alexa said, feel like there have been hateful, harmful things said. And I have a hard time saying that that didn't happen. When alternative lifestyles or anyone who is not in a heterosexual relationship or lifestyle is a problem or is not normal. When I'm very sorry that someone was told that because they're straight, that's wrong. But we promote tolerance and acceptance, but our kids aren't getting that. Our kids aren't getting to hear that their life is okay. They're not getting an inclusive education. They're getting a heterosexual education. And having something, not saying, yay, someone should have gay sex. That is not what they want. They're saying, promote it in a positive light, just like you do a heterosexual marriage. Not to say that it is a problem, or this is not a future problem. This is a right now issue. This is an issue where I'm going to have students who have questions, who are a big part of the high school. We are one of the, I would say, one of the bigger clubs at the beginning of the year. I remember at the beginning of last year when an administrator came through and we filled the entire library with students who need a safe space, and they're not getting that. They're not getting a safe space because of our community that comes together and says that it is a problem. And focusing entirely on heterosexual relationships is a problem for, it might be just 40 students that are in the club. It might be just, it's not just 40 students in our school, but they deserve to have that safe space as well. And we're not asking for a lot. Again, that language to be taken out of the heterosexual relationship and kind of demystifying it. Fact-based, age-appropriate education across the board, not just in sex ed, but in inclusive curriculum across the board. And it creates a safe environment for students to be in school when they know that they are in an accepting environment. And it creates a hostile environment for those students who are already at risk for many things when they are told that their lifestyle is not normal or they are not normal. Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're still up there, I'd like to make one point to you. That language now must come out of the policy because the state law has changed. Our policy has to comport the state law at some level. And so when the state made the change, that then requires us, which is why this whole discussion started, to go in and make a change to the policy that removes that language.
Thank you, Mr.
I do want to just make one point. I've never seen anybody talk ill about anybody in the community, but I sure hear a lot of it the other way around. And as a matter of fact, last year or the year before, a member of that community who self-identified as a high school student came up and wrote a poem about what hypocrites the board were. And she seemed to be very popular. So it's really hard for me, and I'm willing to listen, but nobody's talking to me. It's really hard for me to think that these kids are not supported, because this is mainstream. It's everywhere. You cannot turn on a TV show without having an example somewhere that it is normal. You can't go anywhere without this agenda being right front and center in front of you. And that's very uncomfortable for some people. That doesn't mean they're hateful people. It means it's uncomfortable for them. And the tolerance should go both ways. I don't see a lot of it the other way. I don't see a lot of tolerance from members of our school district for the conservative community. I really don't. I hear a lot of accusations, but there's never anything behind it. And I just don't understand why that is. We're a community. Our kids are hurting. Our kids are committing suicide. The rates are much higher for LGBT. This is why we're having these conversations, or at least I am. I want to have those conversations, but how can you have a conversation when you're just a right-winger? It's very difficult.
Respond to that. It's easy for you or for me to say that our students should feel supported because it's everywhere. You and I are, I'm making an assumption, are straight, cisgendered women. And if you don't know what cisgendered means, it is you identify as, your gender identity matches your biological sex. And we don't identify any differently. We are the majority. And it's easy for us to say, they should feel supported, it's everywhere. But you're not there. You're not that student. And I'm sitting next to a student who I can feel the anxiety coming off of her because of some of the comments here. And that's, obviously it really affects me.
Well, I'm very sorry if anybody felt offended by the conversation.
Who is
I really
next? Who is next?
I'd like to go next.
Mrs. Alliar? Go ahead and take the podium and let her speak.
I just want to tell everyone here that whatever policy I hope that, and I'm sure that we will come up with, will be to honor and cherish every child, no exceptions. And we will honor and respect them, talk respectfully, non-judgmentally, and try to eliminate any political bias, because it is not part of this discussion, and that's not very wonderful.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Martin. I have a 17-year-old son in high school, a 11-year-old daughter who's about to go to the junior high next year, and I have a 6-year-old son in 2nd grade, and we have another one, and it'll be working its way up through grade level 2. I got here because I heard, and shame on me, because I haven't reviewed all the documentation or the emails or anything like that. I'm here for the sole purpose that I heard that the sex education program at the high school was being pulled. I'm not discriminatory against anyone. Just for a little test, has anyone here, raise your hand, sat through the Mojave County Health Department's sex education program?
Somebody behind you.
It's not impressive amount of hands for us to throw this program out, because there's not enough people that have sat through the program to know
and see and experience what's being taught in the program to say that it should be thrown out. No one I'm not trying to call out the board, because I haven't sat through it either. But my son has sat through the top program, and he's sat through the sex education program through their department, which and I didn't sit through it, but from what I understand was not right wing, left wing. It was very statistical, promoting abstinence, just like Alexis had informed. Am I wrong? You're
completely correct.
Yeah, it's not, you can't be a lesbian and you can't be gay and you have to be straight. It's very straightforward. Anatomy, physiology, this is how they're intended to be used, this is how they work. It's not telling them you should be like this or you should be like that. Should it be left to be taught at home? No. I'm absolutely against. I'm not absolutely against you. Yes, the parents should be involved. The parents should be teaching. But as a parent, I'm gonna have to call this lady home so I know what I'm talking about. Because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't know all the facts. So it would be inappropriate for me to teach my son, all that information. I'm concerned that, just like Alexis said, that it's the implementation is only at the high school. I have a daughter who's going to junior high next year, where there is no program whatsoever. And I'll tell you what, from a an experienced parent of multiple ages, and working in the school district, I can tell you this for certain, it's starting before it gets to the high school, way before it gets to the high school. So yes, we need to make some changes, absolutely. Now I understand, we have an issue, it's not in the policy, and it's being used in the school, so yeah, let's get it in the policy. Let's start implementing the lower levels that really push the abstinence at the younger ages. Am I right? Is 100% abstinence at the younger ages where it's all starting. And we're doing nothing. And these people are right here. We don't have to pay for them. We're doing nothing.
It's free.
It's free. So, I also hear we have social issues that need to be addressed. Yes, I don't think we're going to resolve them right here. But Mr. Heston, from what I understand, we are here to fix policy issues that have been arised, not fix right wing, left wing, what's right, what's wrong. And if it were left to my home environment to teach me all this, it would have failed really bad. Worse. So, I'm absolutely about what they are saying. The parents should be teaching, and reinforcing. Yes, the parents would like to get more information because we don't know everything. So if that can be offered with their program, that would be great too.
Thank you.
That's something to look at with them, moving forward.
Thank you. And if every father or mother were to provide this information, we've heard some really good support for parents who are willing to do that, and they themselves said that they thought that was their responsibility. But the fact is that I don't know if even 10% of our parents broach the subject. They tell us we knew nothing. The kids did. We knew nothing. And so that's a big missing hole, and we have to decide, do we want to address that? Should we address it? That's kind of what we're here tonight to figure out. So thank you. Okay. Next.
My name is Emma Patterson, and I'm a senior at the high school. I've been through these programs that are being talked about, and I personally, for myself, I believe in waiting for sex till marriage, and I'm very religious, and religion is part of my everyday life, but I also believe that I don't have a right from what I believe to impose on somebody else's belief because they don't believe in waiting till marriage. They might not believe in God. They don't have the same beliefs as I do, and I don't believe in imposing that on them. My mom taught me what sex was when I was younger, but she taught me what it was, but I didn't get everything from her that I got from the class at school. I didn't learn from her about STDs and the risks or different kinds of birth control. And I believe that was, for me, it was a very educational class, and it did not make me want to have sex more or anything like that. It's not like these education classes are like, oh, have sex. That's not there. And I believe that they should be taught earlier. They should be abstinence earlier, and maybe later in like high school, like middle school abstinence, high school, maybe like what it is now. And like there's worries that if we accept this program, then they're just gonna say, oh, you accepted us, and like force all other policies on you. But if we keep what we have now, I think it's working, and we should probably implement things like lesbian, gay behavior because they need to be protected too, because you can't stop them from doing what they're gonna do. Even if you don't personally believe in it, then they still have a right to get the knowledge that they need to protect themselves. That's what this should be about. Getting kids the knowledge they need to protect themselves, no matter what their beliefs are, what somebody else's belief is, to abstinence. And I also believe that this should be more about what the students are saying, because I've been through this class. It was very beneficial for me. It didn't make me go either way. I already had my belief made up beforehand. But I don't think that people who've never been through the program, don't know anything about the program, should be saying anything about whether or not it's working or whether or not it's beneficial, because they should be surveying students in the high school, asking whether or not it was beneficial for them. And this isn't about, I think the discussion has gone too political. This isn't about what the media is saying or anything like that. And the thing is, like, these classes aren't teaching kids to have sex. You see it in TV shows, in the media, everywhere. If they want to do it, they're going to do it. You just need to teach them to be protected, to protect themselves.
Thank you. Let me ask you, how many more do we have who want to speak? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4? Okay, 5. All right, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Madison Shaw. Hi. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to ask about was the videos on the back here. I just wanted to know why, like, just want to have like a one sentence real quick, like refresher on why you chose these videos on the back.
Well, I went through it. Were you not here?
Oh, I missed that
That's
part.
okay.
I'm so sorry. Can I just have like a one? Sure. I got that.
Well, I really wanted to highlight what had happened in Canada with the compelled speech, and it's all surrounding, the LGBT community. And I wanted to highlight that, so that was kind of the purpose for it. But then I also wanted other people to have this argument instead of me, because I'm often called a right-winger. So I thought it would be more legitimate, coming from members of that community, to have those conversations. So that was kind of the purpose of why I put that there. And then specifically, the Blair White and Jessica Yanyan video, that's what ultimately happened. So that's a video of a Canadian trans who has done nothing to transition, who is now using the law that was well intended to make people feel better and feel, more safe, But now it's being used to shut down business and destroy people's lives. So I wanted it to kind of be a warning about what we're headed towards with all the PC conversation and people who feel hurt.
What I wanted to say about it was that I have actually seen these videos, and I have actually seen multiple videos of Blair White. And she is a conservative who is also transgender. That's not a political debate here. It's just talking about Jessica Niamh. If you watch the video, she says that Jessica Niamh is not the statistic to like use for this because it's like an outlier, and she's not the voice for the transgender community and all that. And so when pulling out, like in the presentation that we saw earlier, because I was there for that, it just kind of had some pathos kind of device. I look at things and I just kind of see things and I'm like, okay, well that was to show you emotion, like showing the poster board with all the statistics that were really like made everyone be like, whoa, wait, and like step back for a sec, which I understand why you think that might have been okay, but I don't agree with that. That's not what we're talking about. But Jessica Niamh just is not the total part of it. It's like pulling something out of a crowd and being like, this is the standard, and it's not. So that's just what I wanted to say about that. Prager, you wanted to say that these aren't all like Republican sources, right?
No.
They're not all?
No.
Okay, because I was going through some of them and I've seen multiple sources like this, like the one about Rep. Soprano, he's Republican. Prager, you, Rep. Soprano, whatever it's called. I looked it up. And
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
oh, representative. Oh.
Representative.
Well, I mean, he's a Republican, but the HR 5, the Equality Act, this is just law. I mean, this is just fact. And it's kind of funny because that only has 624 views, and that's what's really going on in our country. But you have women on the left that are not supportive of this. So this is not political. I know everybody wants to make it political, and it is politics. That's why I titled this section Politics. But my point is that we're so polarized, left and right, that we can't even see what's happening.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to point out some of these a lot of these are actually Republican. Okay. That's why I was kind of confused on why. Okay. I also went through the program, I went through the program, and I think someone mentioned up here earlier that there was like oral sex mentioned in it, and I don't remember ever being taught that, and literally the entire time we were just taught about, as basically said, transmitted diseases and things like that. I don't think I was ever told that, I think I vividly remember someone saying like, no, STDs are not stopped by condoms, but they're like not, they're just there for the prevention of pregnancy and stuff like that. You said that we should like stop the program because everyone knows about it earlier, and now like, oh, everyone knows about condoms and everything like that. But I think the reason why everybody knows about that is because of these programs.
I think it's very unfair that this is happening because I wasn't trying to shut down your program. I didn't know about your program. And I've spent this whole time having to defend that. It's different. I didn't know about their program. So this whole thing didn't come about because we're trying to get rid of their program that you've gone through. We didn't know you had a program. So that wasn't the purpose of this whole meeting. Sorry.
This is something I heard in it, I just wanted to respond to that because I was just kind of like confused on how someone, like, just the oral sex part, wasn't taught that. You know.
Would you be surprised to know that that the CDC just changed back, if I'm not, is it just changed this year or last year? The definition of abstinence did include oral sex. Would that shock anybody? Because that seems,
Is that information available on the CDC website?
I'm sure it is.
How did you find out about it? They're not on the CDC
I
website.
cannot tell you where I read it right now, but I will find you a source.
And as to your point about this being unfair, that you feel like you're being forced to defend your position when you weren't talking the program in the first place, it is fair because you proposed to eliminate all sex education. So now we are showing examples of what is being taught, and you are being asked to explain why you object to sex being taught in school. So that is fair.
Well,
You're conflating it too on purpose.
Can I address that?
It's
Can
right
I
here in black and white.
address that? When she made her proposal, we were told as a board that we did not teach comprehensive sexual education. It is since her proposal, in fact, several weeks after her proposal, that it came to light that we in fact did teach comprehensive sexual education. To hold her responsible for an opinion and a view and a policy that she made weeks before actual facts were in play, I think is not what we should be doing here. What we should be doing is we should be listening to those in the audience. We should be coming to conclusions on how we would like to craft our policy moving forward. And we should not be politicizing and conflating, which is, unfortunately, I think what we have been doing in some manner, way, shape, or form as a board. We need to get back on track, and we need to start listening to the last of the people lined up, and we need to start giving an idea of where we are as a board, so that we can start to form what will ultimately become the policy for this district.
I can agree with your comments about going forward and crafting policy, but my question remains, if you thought that no sex ed was being taught in the schools, then why propose banning the sex education? Why ban something that you believe did not exist in the first place?
Well, you would have had to have read my research in order to understand the answer that I would give you.
I did.
Because I was trying to prevent what was coming. But we still haven't even gotten to that.
Yes, because I think it's appropriate to address actual problems instead of imaginary ones.
Okay, well, we have actual problems in this city where members of the LGBT community are suffering, and maybe you don't represent everybody.
Okay, next.
I feel like we're walking into a war zone. I'm sorry. My name is Pat Lesso. I have a question. You found out about this a week or two ago, but yet you have this meeting so quickly, and yet nobody went through her class. And I want to go through your class now, because all these kids have said how great it was, and yet none of you have said, let me get this, and let me get at least a day's worth of what these people are talking about, because it's what we're going to discuss. And we pulled this meeting together so bloody fast, I'm amazed that we did that. And yet, nobody's actually seen anything.
Pat, can I address that real quick?
If you'd like to, of course, sir.
The meeting was called when I asked for a work session at the last board meeting, which was what date? Superintendent decided?
I think it was May.
It was in, no, it was in July.
July 8th? July 8th. So we pulled this meeting together not quickly, but in a month.
Okay.
Second, we as a district did not have a copy of the curriculum and the resource materials taught in our schools until yesterday. So
that does limit you.
It really does. This became an issue because the legislature and the governor changed the law. So at that point, we get a policy advisor saying you need to update your policy. This is being driven from the top of our government into we have this unified school district. And we're responding that perhaps we have to like to have a more in-depth conversation of our policy. That's what you see here. Now, in that pursuit is when all of these details and facts actually came out.
I think I'm probably the luckiest person in the world. I was born and raised in the 60s. My sex education was in the streets. My parents had my sex talk was 5 minutes long. It wasn't probably as good as the one she's teaching, but I did learn. And you know the nice thing about being raised in Hollywood? There's transvestites. Even back then, gays walked the streets freely. Nobody got hurt. And we actually had cross-dressers in the same dressing rooms, and nobody killed anybody, and nobody did anything, and yet we managed. And there's no reason why there's a problem here. We make it a problem because we make it such a big deal. The one thing I love about TV now, and I don't even watch much, is because they make it seem like they're all normal people, because they are. I'm not gay. I have kids. I taught kids, boys and girls, sex ed because they asked me strange questions that they saw on TV or some kid at school, and they're uncomfortable, and I was as red as your shirt because I didn't know how to talk to a boy about that stuff. but I managed, and every word of my sentences were able to come out in appropriate language. But I do believe it doesn't start at 15, but I think the stuff that you guys showed us, it's not even in the curriculum, so why was it brought up? It's not necessary, because you are making problems that don't exist. We have a world of problems that don't exist yet. We don't need to address them. Let's work on the here and now, fix what's wrong, correct what's right. At least watch the program before you ban the program, because it sounded like a fabulous one. The kids here seem to be loving it. Nobody's being told, hey, go down and get laid right now because it's what you want to do. Now, that was the 60s, I might assure you. The 60s was a little more liberal. We are a lot more liberal. And I'm not afraid to say that. It doesn't scare me that sex doesn't bother me. And I can talk to any of these kids and I'll answer any of their questions because somebody has to. But if you're going to sit there and ban a program you haven't even seen, that scares me even more. Because I won't guarantee the parents in this room are going to answer some of those questions that these kids are going to come up with these days. Thank God God doesn't make mistakes when he makes all of us. And if he makes you I don't care what letter the alphabet. I'm sorry, I don't know all the letters. I tried. God knows I read every one of the letters. I don't know them all, but by golly, God doesn't make mistakes when he makes every one of us. And I think you guys have to keep a very open mind before you shut that door on sexual education, because we didn't get it in the 60s, and I'll tell you, our pregnancy rate was off the charts compared to now. But no, back then penicillin cured everything. It doesn't anymore.
We're not here to ban a program.
It certainly sounds like you want to.
We're here to decide the policy moving forward for the district.
To ban the new one.
In regards to sex ed.
Mm-hmm. And until you see this one, I certainly wouldn't change your policy until when you've got these children who are here, no offense children, you're adults, but whatever. Until you see it, don't throw it away. It sounds like a terrific one, and if someone would invite me, I'd go to it in a New York minute. I really would. But thanks for at least having this meeting and letting us at least speak. I appreciate that more than anything.
We appreciate your coming. Thank you. Okay, next.
My name is David Burnett, and I've got a daughter going to high school this year. And I just want to know, is this already a done deal that you're going to start pushing this new listen-based sex education deal?
Now that's what we're discussing, what kind of policy we want. And one of the things I'm going to ask after the last person speaks, and I bet the other board members have some questions of the audience, but I'd like to get a feel for people who think that we should have a program at all, because I think there are people in the audience who don't want us to have any kind of a program, and I just want to know what that's, I'm not asking for consensus, I'm trying to get a feel for the audience. So no, it has not been decided.
When will you make the final decision?
Well, there's a board meeting next Tuesday night. I'm not sure that we're going to be.
It's not even on the books for a curriculum.
Whether we will or will not teach sex education in our district. And then from that decision, if the decision is that we will offer, then the board would have to determine the curriculum. So that would be the next step from that.
So do you understand? That was an excellent answer. We're just trying to decide whether we even want to proceed at all.
Well, I've seen the textbook for this new one, and it's basically pornography. Sounds like these two ladies have been doing an awesome job. So if I had
what textbook are you referring to?
The one that goes with this new program.
There is no new program. There's
the one from California.
Well, I don't know about it from California, but the UNESCO stopcse.org.
Yes.
That's probably what you're referring to.
Yes.
But that's not a textbook. That is a all-encompassing sustainable development goals that's part of the 2030 plan. I don't want to go into all that, but that is where that information is coming from.
But we're not using those materials.
Right.
So I just wanted to alleviate your concern because we don't use those materials. Mrs. Cohen wanted us to know what else is out there and perhaps coming our way so that we can be forewarned. Was that your big concern, was that you were afraid?
Well, that, and I was just concerned that maybe, I was trying to think of a polite way to put it, maybe like you're being coached like the people in Temecula was the school board there.
Not, nobody coaches me. You know, everyone here is quite independent, so. And we wouldn't be having this meeting if we didn't want to know the feel of the community.
Well, I'm skeptical, so thank you.
That's fine. Skeptics are good. Next.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Deanna Flager. I'm a 26-year resident of Lake Havasu. Before I get into my comments on this evening, I wanted to, I got a little note. There was a question from the board on the CDC stance on abstinence. And this is from the CDC's website. Abstinence. What we know about abstinence. Abstinence is the only 100% effective way to prevent HIV, other sexually transmitted diseases, and pregnancy. The longer you wait to start having oral, vaginal, or anal sex, the fewer sexual partners you are likely to have in your lifetime. Having fewer partners lowers your chances of having sex with someone who has had or has HIV or another STD. And that's on their website. So I, like Dr. Weiss, got the email as a parent and that this was going to be a discussion tonight on the policy. And with that email, there was an abundance of links of information that was sent out for that discussion. Now, my understanding is that the discussions should have multiple sides, but everything that was sent out in that link, I perceived as being extremely biased. So here I am. As a parent trying to be informed on what the school district policy was, I went to the website and printed off a copy of the policy. And just FYI, based on the conversation that I've heard tonight about the words terminology, heterosexuals, monogamy, and homosexuality, that's not in the policy that is available to parents or the public on the school district's website. So you might want to check into that and make sure that you have the most current policy up to date on the website.
Language is in the regulation.
What's that?
That language is in the regulation.
Okay, thank you. I did not see that link on there. Thank you. I'm a parent. I have two children. I have a 19-year-old that is a graduate from Lake Havasu High School, born and raised here. I have a son who's 17 that's a senior this year at Lake Havasu High School. Both of my children have been through the curriculum. I texted my daughter today and said, hey, we got a meeting tonight. She's living in Washington State now. I said, what is your recollection of this class or this curriculum? And what she said was it was very focused on birth control and abstinence and some biological functions of the human body. And very basic, but thorough. And she didn't really have any strong feelings about it one way or the other. She did mention that she had the opportunity as a senior in another physical education class to have additional conversations as a class group that she felt were kind of built upon the foundation that the basic Mojave County training that she got. So, and my son is one of those that is very much into video games, and so yes, we've had to talk with him, and yes, he's had the training or the curriculum at school, but he may be one of those that doesn't really connect much. So, one of the comments that I heard repeatedly tonight was parents need to be more involved. Parents need to have a say-so. Well, here we are. This is our opportunity to have our say-so. And this is a conversation that should happen in the house. And I very clearly heard the staff, and I experienced as a parent, the opportunity to opt out. I did not have to have my children sit through the school-provided curriculum. I'm glad that they did, because there is information in there, on specifics regarding different types of birth control, pros and cons, things that I am not necessarily educated on, or a subject matter expert, if you will. So I would like to see, I think that the concerns of the community that were expressed tonight about that parents need to have more say-so is currently being addressed by the option to opt out. I also, like Dr. Weiss, I am a supporter of monogamy. I have told my children, my preference was to not engage in any kind of sexual behavior until they got married. In fact, we had a thing that we started even before they started school. It was at 5 C's. And it was college, career, CASA, and then kids, okay, and companion, and then kids, in that order. And we wanted them to focus on school, get educated, get stable before they start trying to bring kids, or not trying to bring kids, and unfortunately bringing kids into the world before they're ready for it. We were parents at Nautilus Elementary, and over there they started a general citizenship program that emphasized safe, responsible, and respectful. I think as the board moves forward with the decision on what the policy is going to say, that it should focus on those terms. I think that students need to be educated so that they can be safe, make safe choices, be responsible, make responsible choices, and utmost be respectful. Be respectful to their partners, to themselves primarily, and then to their classmates and the community as a whole. As I said, I believe in monogamy, and I believe waiting until marriage. I also am in a 30-year-long committed partnership. We are married, but my wife couldn't be here tonight. So when I took my children to school and I'm sitting in the kindergarten classroom and everybody's talking about their families, their heterosexual families, or they say, to my son, and he says, I've got 2 moms. And they're like, well, how does that work? And our response, whenever that topic came up, was very simple. Every family is different. Some families have a mom and a dad, and that's great. Some families just have one mom. Some families just have a dad. Some kids are being raised by their grandparents or their aunts or their uncles, if they're lucky enough to have somebody loving enough in their life to take care of them. Some families have 2 dads, some families have 2 moms. And so this has been something that it's been important enough to me to be involved in my kids' lives and through their school lives, so that as the community and the students see us, we're just another family. And the kids know that, it's Mom D or Mama Mia, and then they don't see us as different in any other way than it's just a different family. So I think it's important also moving forward that the school board not separate my family type from what the majority of the family type is. When I hear students talk about feeling kind of threatened or put down upon, and Nicole, you said you apologized. You said you hope that nobody felt that way. But when I hear members of the public say things like, it's always in our face. Well, you know what, every time I turn on the TV, there's a heterosexual couple always in my face. I don't have a whole lot of, when I was younger, there wasn't a whole lot of representation for my type of family available in the general public.
You feel like there is now, though?
There is more now, for sure.
But it's not enough?
No, I'm not here to promote or push my lifestyle into anybody's face. Conversely, I would just ask the same respect for everybody else.
Do you feel respected in the community?
Actually,
I really am genuinely curious.
Yeah, actually, I do. I've had one negative encounter in the community, and it happened during spring break down in the channel. And it was a slur comment, and we're like, yeah, and but I mean, when we frequent the same grocery store, we have for 20, 25 years, before we had kids, we go in there with, when the kids were little, we go in without the kids, and you know, everybody's like, where are the kids? You didn't bring them, and it's like, yeah, school's in, it's good. I can go shopping and not have to drag the kids around. But we've been very fortunate. We have found a good amount of support, a strong support system, just from neighbors and friends and parents, doctors, teachers, and so I've been pleased with that.
Because you're in the community.
Because we are. So, and it's important that we make sure that students that are new or newly out or questioning have that same opportunity to feel a part of the community. So
I agree, but I think it's hard for students to feel that way if they hear like what they heard today.
I would agree.
Because they're being guided to feel like they're hated just by the conversation, the way it took place. You know, everybody knows this is a conservative community, so when a very respected member of the community comes up and starts off with, you know, this is all slanted right-wing material, it makes it, the students in the community are going to, if they're feeling in the audience not feeling comfortable, they're gonna take that and they're gonna think these people don't like me because they're Republicans. And I just don't see our community that way.
no, I don't either. I don't think it's a Republican or Democrat issue, because I'm registered Republican.
I was trying to make it not that way, very much so.
But the only time I ever heard the word slanted come up was up here.
Well, that's because your email said that. Your email referred to the material as slanted.
Slanted, and
it was
WordPress.
interesting because what you provided the board did not contradict anything. It was very in line with everything I posted. But because it
now
came...
you were talking about sexual, you were focused a lot on transgender people in the attachments that were sent out, that were on the, there was a lot of transgender.
Yes.
And I've known at least one student at the high school that was transgender, and
it's tough.
It is tough.
I understand
and,
that. It's a real problem in our whole
I don't see it as a
society.
problem.
Well, not here, but it is. Well, that's why I wish you would watch the video, because it really is a problem.
What being transgendered is a problem?
No.
Okay, so
No.
what exactly is
What
the
the
problem?
professional medical doctors are doing to children before their brains have been able to develop is a problem.
Okay, so, well, but to bring it back,
Okay.
we're here to talk about the school district's policy on what is being taught in our schools.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so I would like to, as I said before, I would like to see that policy be all-inclusive, and I would like to see that policy be focused on safe, responsible, and respectful curriculum, education for the students.
Do you think that you have to delineate out from students and LGBT students?
No.
Thank you.
I don't think it needs to be. I think that any relationship should be safe, responsible, and respectful.
I just wanted to know how you felt on that,
Yeah.
because I don't either.
Right.
And that's what is coming, and that's the conversation I was trying to have. And this was a last minute thing. And it's unfortunate that it seemed like that was part of the goal here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm gonna go back to my comments on the policy. And would just like to see the board make some balanced decisions in that regard.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Stephanie Loris. So we're talking about policy on what should and should not be taught in our schools, as well as a curriculum. And you know, I'm appalled at the fact that first we had a curriculum that we didn't even have approval for. That the safeguards weren't in place. That this got into our classrooms. But that aside, you know, we have a full house here today. You know, where was this months ago when we talked about English curriculum? Where was this when we talked about Singapore math? You know, last time we had this room full like this was when we talked about dress code. And
those are the big ones that bring them in every time.
But you know, now we're talking, you know, about you know, sex ed curriculum, and it blows my mind that this is what can fill a room, but other curriculum can't. You know, we, as somebody that works with parents, that works with children, that works with the community at large, you know, and in looking at this policy, I just can't, in good conscience, say this is something that we teach in our schools. You know, should it be 100% on the parents? In my whole heart, yes, but is that reality in today's world? No, it's not. But that's why we exist as a community, as you know, as part of Lunderbridge Christian Churches. The onus falls on us. It falls on community groups. But should those community groups necessarily be in our schools teaching that? I don't know. It depends on the curriculum. But that's why the curriculum needs to be brought to the board and thoroughly examined before we put this in our schools. You know, Mr. Marsden said it at the last meeting. The district does not belong in people's bedrooms. And, you know, sex education is something that I really think we need to take a strong look at. You know, we should not be, as a district, legislating sex education. That is something that belongs out in our community. It's the responsibility of our parents. It's the responsibility of our community. It is not the responsibility of our governing bodies.
Thank you, Stephanie. Was that the last, Mr. Barney, are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Finally, some wisdom.
So I'm going to take my prerogative as the board president. I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to stand up when I ask this question, and I'm going to ask another question. I imagine other members will have questions as well. My question is, would you please stand up if you would prefer that the school district taught no, I'll call it sex education. It's not defined, there are no parameters, there's no definition of what that would include. In other words, how many of you don't want us to pursue this at all and drop it? Please stand up. You do not want sex education taught in the school. Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, how many of you then, go ahead, I want to see you stand up if you really mean this. How many of you prefer that the schools take on this responsibility and offer some kind of a program? Did you have a question?
I had a question, yeah, because a program like this, yes. A program like
that's what,
that, like
so that's what we.
So
There's, it's like you say
Yes.
yes, but does that mean that just gives you full reign to pick whatever program you guys decide and then we
No,
no longer have a
because
say?
we'll listen to the community, just like we have tonight. and
So
we'll-
we say, yes, we like sex ed in the
If you're-
school,
This
but the policy we get to
We
have a
haven't
say.
developed it yet, but we
Right,
will.
and we'll have a chance to input on that?
No?
Because that's what's scary. You say
Well-
yes, but then.
Well,
it depends on the program. I would say yes, but it depends on the program.
of course, and that's when we do have that board meeting to vote on the policy, then you will see what the policy is, it will get discussed. It might be a meeting as long as this, because this topic is that, lends itself to that kind of thing. So it just, do you want us to pursue this? If you do, stand up.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate that. All right.
I do. I scratch my head. I'm an analytical guy. I do computer work. Technically, I'm an engineer. I've got a very logical, laid out mind. I go back and I think about blue laws. Who here knows what a blue law is? Oh boy. We had these blue laws that got into people's bedrooms and everybody got upset about it and we got rid of the blue laws. So here we are, and we are a government agency. We teach people, we're very warm and fuzzy, your kids come to our campuses and we teach them all sorts of things. Here we are as a government agency, and the dichotomy to me, where I start to pull back from some of this is, here we are as a government agency, and we're about to get back into your bedrooms and teach your kids about sex. That's where the dichotomy in this is. And sex is not this far-reaching intellectual pursuit like physics or electronics or even basic literature or mathematics. It's personal. And that's why we're all here tonight, because this is personal. Everybody in here has an opinion and an idea on what this should be, including the state of Arizona, who's going to, if I'm not mistaken, in the next year or two, change the curriculum. So new curriculum is coming. My thought process as a parent, and I have now 3 kids in the district. I was very successful. I'm getting on a plane Friday morning, flying one to college, it's good stuff. But as a parent who still has 2 children that are going to come into this program in the next 2 to 3 years, I want to make sure that my options as a parent are all on the table. As a Christian, and my pastor is in the room tonight, as a Christian person, as a believer, and I don't mock anybody. If you'd like to come to church, you're welcome, you're invited. We don't care what your stripe is. But as a Christian, I want my kids to abstain from sex. That is what we talk about in our household. I believe that I know enough about the topic as a parent that I can correctly tell my sons how to protect themselves, how to stay out of trouble if something were to go sideways and that they were to fall into adolescent sex. I would love the option as a parent to have this taught outside of the regular school day. I would love to see this happen 6, 7 o'clock at night. I'd love it to be entirely voluntary who shows up for it. I don't want the kid going off to the library or study hall. And if you as a parent want your kid to go through it, it's opt-in, not opt-out. It's permissible so that your kid can go. And if you as a parent want to go, let's put you in a position where you can go. If you don't like the content, your child can leave and there's no deficit. Let's partner with a local nonprofit and do something like that. What's wrong with that idea? Why aren't we getting outside the box in how we do this and make it so that we honor everybody in our decision? Because right now, your kid's in school, here comes another permission slip. It's like a syllabus. For all the teachers in the room, I'm sorry, I get a syllabus and I look at it and I go, again, sign, here you go, sign, here you go. Every semester I get like 4 or 5 of these per child in high school. It's annoying. Sorry, it is. My kids are responsible for their homework, not me, but I gotta sign off on the rules. And I get society has changed and why we do it. Don't get me wrong. Why can't we do that? Why can't we as a community say, if you need help talking to your kid, here are the resources. If you can't talk to your kid, here's the resource. And here's what we teach, and you're welcome to come sit in, and we're going to make it convenient for you as a community. Come and sit in. That honors everybody, every thought, every persuasion. I don't care if you're purple and are from Mars and do it in a completely different way from everybody else in God's green earth. You can come to this and figure it out. And then why don't we have resources in our schools, designated staff members, whether they are counselors or nurses, but somebody with some kind of a health background or some teacher that we have actually trained who would agree to do this, that children with issues and questions who are unsure of their sexual identity, whatever it may be, go to them. That honors that too. And it does it in a way where we're not doing it in front of a classroom full of kids, where they could be ostracized or bullied or made fun of in any manner, way, shape, or form. We just got to get out of the box on this. It's not the 60s, it's not the 70s, it's not the 80s. It's almost 2020. That's just my 2 cents.
Who's gonna do that? That sounds great, but who's gonna do that? Like, we're being offered the school board right now, but what community group is going, is that offered? Is that an option?
I think that if we made the right approach to someone like, I would say in our agency, if it was like 5 years ago, but House Community Health Foundation, I think if we approached them and we worked with Mojave County Health, I think we can accomplish this and stop worrying about how it happens or what happens. If you as a parent don't want to do it, don't do it. If you show up and you're offended, take your kid and go. But I think that what we are offering is we're offering a health service through the district that's a government agency, and the further we trap people into that, the more that we disrespect points of view and something that's very, very personal.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, when we started this conversation, we talked about teaching sex. I'm totally against that. I don't want the school district to teach sex. I want them to teach sexuality. There's a big difference between sex as the action of having sex, and sexuality is of what's composed within the human nature. Okay, God-given things, humanity added things, culture added things. It's very complex. So I don't want anybody being taught sex. I want them taught sexuality. And kids are going to learn about anything that they want to learn. They're going to learn from the streets, from the internet, from their friends. And 90% of what they learn from their friends who are just as stupid and uneducated as they are is going to be wrong. So I'd rather see them learn in an education environment, and I would want that education environment to present it to the parents, what they're teaching. That should be in every subject. So then the parents can piggyback off what's being taught on the school, and it's their responsibility to education on them about the values and about the morality of different parts of sexuality.
John?
But they need a basis, they need a foundation to build upon. And parents in themselves don't have that foundation to build upon.
John?
Yes.
If the parents came with the student to the class after hours, would that be what you're after?
No, I would like them to have the curriculum that's going to be taught before it gets taught.
That can happen too.
Yeah.
Within that system, that can
And then they
happen.
can understand. You know, I'm saying that, you know, I'm a deacon of the Catholic Church, and I haven't thrown that into the conversation because this should stay not political, not right, not left, not religious. So I didn't throw that into the mix. I'm throwing it now to have people understand that I'm speaking not from the Catholic Church's point of view, but from my point of view, as an educated individual who's been around for a while. And that's, I don't know what else I can say. Kids need to get educated. They get to educate themselves. And if they educate themselves, I've been there, done that. I know I got educated about sex, and it probably wasn't as good as if I had more sex education in school. And kids are going to learn about things. And I'd rather have them learn in a controlled, intelligent atmosphere, and the parents be involved. And it was kind of interesting. One of the reasons I became a deacon in the church was when I sent my kids to religious education, I wanted to know what the church was teaching them also. So I went to adult classes at the time to find out what they were going to be teaching my kids. And from that, I got involved and became a deacon 13 years ago. But even from the religious point of view, I wanted to know what the church was teaching my kids.
I myself had thought the words sex ed would not even come up tonight. I mean, we tend to use the term reproductive health when we talk about this. So I think we all get that distinction. We don't want anyone teaching our kids about sex, but you've got to kind of define what you can talk about. I mean, once you talk about conception and how it occurs, you're talking about sex. But I call it reproductive health. All right, just so you know.
I think, I'm sorry, but it seems like when I don't want to teach my kid how to have sex, I want to teach them how to protect themselves, like from STDs and being pregnant and these information. If they're taught about how many different types of STDs, I don't even know them all. Like, thank goodness I don't know them, you know? But it's like to have someone that's educated in that type of stuff teach my kid that, I have a feeling it would persuade them and hold them back, like, oh, that's kind of risky, I'm not going to do that. And have that, I don't want to teach them how to have sex, I want to teach them how not to have sex. And with more information, I think the chances of them having sex later on is better. Now, granted, I agree with the school, not necessarily in the schools, because you do get the government involved, and then before you know it, you go down that rabbit hole, and they're teaching a bunch of stuff that you don't personally agree with, you know. In my religion, you know, it's like, I want basically what you're teaching, you know, the basic, I don't know, the foundation, the risks of it, more than anything. So the community thing, that's great. The only thing that worries me about that is the parents that aren't involved. I'm an involved parent. The parents of the kids that aren't involved, you think they're going to sign their kid up to go something from the community? They're not going to. And those kids will be the ones that are in doing the job, and they're the kids that aren't involved.
Those are the ones you want?
Those are the ones that need to be forced to do it. So I worry about them. That's not my child because I'm way too involved.
But are we forcing them now?
I don't know. Are they?
We have to have positive permission now to go and have.
Yeah, but do you think the parent, like they probably, I would think a parent that doesn't care is just going to say, yeah, do it. You know, they're not going to, why would they say no? More, because they don't care. Yeah, so you got to do this in school? Okay, whatever. They don't read it. They just sign yes to everything. You go on that trip, whatever. They don't care.
You did say your name.
I'm sorry, Debbie Carpenter.
Okay.
I didn't.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's my piece.
Okay, right
Sorry.
back behind you. Can you come up to the mic, please, so we can hear you?
All right. My name's Jack Beachel. I've got a daughter in the 8th grade here. She came through Mr. Murray's deal at school, grade student. One thing that was not asked, and I'd like to see you have people stand up on it, to accept or reject what the health department is currently doing, just to see if that part of it is favored. Just for the numbers there, if you would, please.
Thank you. Okay.
Sir, we don't have a copy of the curriculum.
No, I don't mean to correct what they discussed
What they are
here,
doing.
of which is
We have a
biology.
sheet of paper here that tells us what they're teaching, but we don't have a copy of the curriculum.
From what they said, yes, I would agree.
But I think you might have missed
Doesn't
the
give
very
us-
beginning of this evening was their presentation. I think you missed some of that, but I agree with you. You don't have the.
Parents deserve a copy of the
Right.
curriculum before they approve it or stand up.
I'm not asking for approval. It's
This is
the-
not approval.
The people here that heard the presentation of the health department, that they teach biology and sexually transmitted diseases. And I think that is very important, and I'd like to have a call on that.
So would you, if you would like to continue having this, if you're in favor of this program, it doesn't mean we will adopt it, but if you're in favor of this program, please stand up.
Just based on what we heard.
Just
Yeah,
based on what
we
you heard
heard.
tonight, yeah.
Or a program like that.
Yes, or a program similar to that, right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have some clarifying questions and perhaps a point.
Say your name, please.
Carol Malkowski,
Long-time resident, educator.
it was stated our policy is mandated by legislation. Earlier you said we have to change it
May I
because.
fix that amendment real quick?
Yes, thank
Our
you.
policy is not mandated by legislation, our policy must comport to legislation.
Comport to legislation, thank you. Those are the words I'm looking for. So as I'm looking at the policy, many words are repeated as shall. So I understand that, and that's why we need to come up. But then when I get to instruction of acquired immune deficiency syndrome, it says we will provide that information. 1. 2, our faculty has left the room that I would ask these questions of, but I had a conversation with Mr. Masden about our history. So we did have a similar program at the middle school when I was at the middle school teaching wise guys and gals. It was similar, it was off campus, and then standards changed. The Arizona State standard curriculum or standards changed for science and for physical education. So things got moved to the freshman year. We had information provided at the middle school level, and then it got moved when a lot of things shifted, such as myself going to elementary. So I think, one, we need to look at state standards to see, because I believe I heard, but maybe I was mistaken, that you all worked alongside with our staff, along with the standards that are required by our state, and maybe that many of the things that you're providing are things that may have to be provided under health, science, and physical education. So I'm not there right now, so I don't know, but I know that's the historical aspect of where our district was. It was at the middle school, standards changed, it went to the high school, and then the implementation went there.
The last time we visited this, and we've all in our packets got the agenda item, was the STD section of this, and the high school was where that was addressed. That was September 9th of 2008. So it's been almost 11 years.
And that would have been, I believe, the dates that I gave you, so around those dates. Right. I just wanted to make a clarifying question and point.
So,
I would like to present my stance on the issues, although I kind of said some of it, so I apologize if there's some redundancy. I am basing this based on what is in front of me. So if your wishes as far as the proposal that you presented have changed, that's fine. But again, I have to address what's on the paper, not what might be implied, okay? I will vote, I'm just gonna tell you the end from the beginning. I will vote against the ban of sex education in our district. Sexual education is one facet of preparing students to graduate with the academic and social skills necessary to become responsible citizens and contributing members of society, and that is part of our mission as a board. Offering a sex education course does not encourage students to become sexually active any more than teaching a 14-year-old how to change a flat tire encourages them to drive without a license. It is appropriate and reasonable to give students a basic set of facts with the expectation that they will apply that knowledge judicially and hopefully in the future. My second point, I will vote against a codified list of disallowed sources for educational materials. And that is part of your proposal, is that you have a list of websites that you would like to prohibit.
Not websites, organizations.
Okay. I'm uncomfortable, to put it mildly, with the idea of any government entity maintaining a list of organizations that are disqualified from consideration as sources of educational materials. The correct way to shape policy is to evaluate materials on their individual merits. Our governing board ought to set a good example for our students by using critical thinking skills. And then my third point, and it is, again, based on what is in the packet in front of me, because it does have the strike throughs on the homosexual language. I will vote in favor of removing existing language in our district policy that disenfranchises members of the LGBT community. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think that using impartial language is important. We should not have clauses that promote or criticize homosexuality, and we should not have clauses that promote or criticize heterosexuality. Our goal should be to ensure that LHUSD serves its entire student community. In addition, the proposal, and this is based partly on a proposal that John Masden submitted.
Which I will respectfully withdraw.
Okay. That doesn't change my proposed policy. LHUSD this is just in part, but it's kind of the main part. The rest of it's just boilerplate language. LHUSD instruction shall focus on reproductive systems, health consequences, consent, contraception, and disease prevention, with a primary emphasis on abstinence. Instruction shall be age appropriate and medically accurate. Any student may also receive additional one-on-one support and instruction through the school health nursing office or a teacher counselor designated by the district. It sounds like, based on the presentation, and I would like a chance to review the curriculum, but it sounds like the program that has been offered in the past at the high school follows those guidelines. So if our board decides to adopt this policy, I think we ought to also consider retaining the services of the Department of Health Services and continue without interruption for this school year education with our freshmen. I'm a little bit concerned because I don't know the timing of the program. Do you know if it's presented? It's in the spring? Okay. So that would give us some time. It does sound like there are some aspects that need to be brought under code. It was my understanding from the outset that there is an opt-in policy and that that's permission positive. It sounds like there were possibly some exceptions for different aspects of the education. I'm not 100% sure on that. That's just some things that I have heard. What I believe the policy should be going forward is that our district assumes that students do not have permission to participate in sex ed presentations unless the school receives authorization from a parent. If and when a parent declines to grant permission, the parent's wishes shall be honored with no questions asked. I think that might be the main thrust of it. Yes, I will conclude my remarks.
On behalf of the board, I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight and giving your input, your advice, your perspective. I thank the health department. Did you come down from Kingman? Well, thank you very much, and thank you for staying, but I think maybe you learned a lot. Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not done.
I apologize.
I'm going to be there another 2 hours, so. That was a joke, but I could be here another 2 hours easy. I heard one of our counselors refer to gender terminology. This is not a slight on the different genders that are out there identifying as whatever, but this is a concern, and I would like an answer, especially since members of our medical community wanted to come up and challenge me on my research. I would like everybody who's in charge of kids' care to answer the question. If we are going to affirm gender identification in elementary school, I want to hear it. I want to hear it from the board, and I want to hear it from the members of our medical community.
What does that
Why
mean?
is it relevant?
It is not irrelevant,
I don't think
people.
that's a
This
topic
is
for this board at this time, is that correct? That is not the purpose of this meeting. We're talking about high
It's
school
reflecting on a
budget.
board member that I
Just
don't
a minute.
get to
Wait,
determine what's
just-
part of this meeting.
Just a second,
Well, it's
Nicole.
not on the
It is
agenda.
very important.
It's not on the agenda, and it is beyond the scope of the
Oh my
policy
gosh.
we're reviewing.
You are unreal. We are hurting our kids. We are hurting our kids, and you won't even look at the research, the medical doctors that are treating these students. You're being sold something through academia, telling you to affirm these kids' identity when they're 4, 5, 6. We may not be doing it now. I'm not accusing you that we are, but this is harmful to them. And then they are being referred to have irrevocable surgeries, and it's happening at record speed. We are in the middle, California, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. What happens to the kids that don't have the family life that you provide to your family? And what happens when they're confused and they feel like, I feel more comfortable if I'm a boy or if I'm a girl, because they're struggling with other things. And then they're referred to a doctor who then refers them to a surgeon, and they decide to have some life-altering, catastrophic surgeries before their brain even develops. Are you okay with a parent that you have no right to stop that?
Excuse me.
This is an important.
I'd like to answer you.
Okay.
Because I don't think this is at all relevant.
It is.
To us.
That's where
And
you're
we
wrong.
are not discussing this for whether to decide whether we have a policy.
This is part
going
of the
forward.
education that is being pushed in the,
We
okay?
are not pushing anything, and you're talking about the future and what might happen.
No, it's
And
happening.
even if it's happening, even if it happened in the past, right now we're focused on whether we go ahead and have a policy at all to educate our
I wanna be
children or their
clear.
parents. And let's focus on that first question, and then we can decide what's going to be in that policy.
Okay. So I guess as a school board member, I'm not allowed to ask a question, even though everybody else has assumed information about me and what I provided, or Marcia.
I wanted to write your question down. Just.
Are you
I
going
didn't-
to affirm,
I didn't
when
get it.
somebody wants to identify with their, with the opposite biology that they were born with, I'm sorry, I can't think of the terminology, are we going to affirm that? And I'm not saying not to affirm the child. You love and nurture those children and affirm them, but are you going to affirm the fact that 6-year-old Johnny feels like Jenny? Because that's what's being taught in public schools around this entire country right now. That's what you're supposed to do. And there are MDs out there saying this is detrimental, this is creating a whole subclass of suicidal kids. It's off the charts, it's outrageous. And to think that nobody knows about this, it's mind-blowing to me.
Okay. Any other board members who wanted to respond to that?
Totally relevant. And it will come up in whatever curriculum you go for to purchase, if you're going to purchase something boxed, if it's not an abstinence program.
All right. Ms. Cox.
I have a comment about what Member Cohen said, only because it is relevant to the curriculum that, or the proposal that we're gonna have to look at, and it has to do with the fact that our superintendent of public instruction, Hoffman, who was our state superintendent of public instruction, because of the changes that were made, which is the reason why our district and all districts have to now look at the new curriculum, when she made the affirmation in public on June 12, 2018, that she planned and she was going, and this is public record, it's videotaped, that she was going to bring in these organizations into the public schools that offer these kinds of, that GLSEN and Equality Arizona, she was going to bring those programs into the public schools. She made those statements publicly, and then on February 14th, she met with those organizations, and she met with other legislative officials to repeal specifically the language that was eventually repealed because of the lawsuit, and that is what led us here. And so it absolutely is relevant. In fact, Superintendent of Public Instruction Hoffman is part of the board for the Arizona chapter, or Arizona Charter Schools, and was presented with by GLSEN and the Arizona AZ Typo organization with the curricula that they planned on putting in the charter schools. So it's absolutely relevant. And so I do think that we have to, you need to be able to address that.
I do think, living in Arizona, and having worked in the school system since about 1975, it always comes down to local control. No matter what happens, the Arizona legislature, for most things that are like this, they do give us local control. And right now, we have the present state board policy, we do have local control. And I think that our legislators will fight to keep that, whatever, at the local level. John?
Nicole, in all due respect, I totally respect what you have to say, okay? Let me start that way. Try to respect what everybody has to say. And just give me an opportunity and respect what I want to try to say.
I've respected you all
Thank
evening.
you. I don't think anyone means what you're talking about is irrelevant. It is relevant. It's totally, I don't think anybody means that. I think you misinterpret what they say, my opinion. Okay, what you say is totally relevant. What happens is relevant. But tonight's meeting, what we're talking about tonight, is not relevant to what we're trying to decide tonight. We're trying to decide or get opinions on if we want sex education or if we don't want sex education. I'd be the first one to say, I don't want sex education if that's what's being taught, okay? But if it's objective, not opinionated, not prompting, just honest, factual education, then yeah. But tonight, we're not saying what's going to be in the curriculum, what exactly we're being taught. That's, your concern is a discussion for another day when it gets to that point. What I'm thinking is what we want to try to get at it tonight is, should we have sex education or not? And then where it heads to is a discussion for another day. That's how I see it.
Now, I have blurry vision, but I think that I see our state senator, Sonny Borelli, over there, but you'll have to get a little closer to make sure, for me to make sure anyway.
Madam President and members of the board, you're right, local control, and I'm going to quote Ben Franklin, we have a republic if you can keep it. You have local control if you can keep it. We are trying very hard to maintain the majority in the House and the Senate, so that way you can enjoy and keep your right to local control. Now, this is all relevant. I've sat back here and I've been listening, oh, this is all politics, this and that, this is about educating the kids. I totally agree. We should be educating the kids about procreation, not recreation. You know, we should stick to the science, stick to that. Parents need to opt in because they need to know what's going on, because believe it or not, they're not the government's kids, they're your kids. And this is relevant and it is political, because there is a political organization that really is pushing at the state level through Superintendent Hoffman, with the assistance of a couple of senators in the Senate minority. They are pushing this agenda. One of them is also a school board member in his community, and he's also in the state Senate. But they're pushing this not through the front door, through a back door. So if we don't do something now and just keep it as simple as possible, parents need to opt in, because they are ultimately the customer, and the children are the customer, and that's who we should be serving. We are going to do our best to make sure that we keep it local control. Parents need to opt in. It should be science-driven, to meaning reproductive health, not sex. So it is political, and everything is relevant, and Nicole is right on, and I really understand her passion, and she's not a mean-spirited person. She really cares about these kids, and sometimes she comes off a little bit wrong, and we always fight a little bit, but, you know, if I agree with her all the time, we both will be wrong, but, you know, but this is political. There is a political movement going on through Huffman. She promised, that was her campaign promise, and if she got elected as superintendent of public instruction, she was going to push Glisson's, Gladden's, whatever the heck they're called, their agenda. So we know that. We've seen the emails. I've heard the conversations with Senator Quesada. I know what his agenda is. So this is, we need to do it here at this level and keep it. And this is where we should fight to keep it here. Because I'm very proud of our schools out here in rural Arizona, because we are outperforming the schools in Phoenix and Tucson. Outperforming them, hands down, hands down. So once again, that's all to your leadership and the teachers, their dedication. Thank you.
Thank you for attending. And I am now ready for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gary?
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Archie Halia,
Yes.
Tom Yasin,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming and speaking. The meeting is adjourned.